pirates, summon the heroic spirit Drake at the beginning author, like the wind. Page 301. Immediately, standing up, holding the sail of the warship beside him with both hands, he pulled it out and threw it towards the warring states. On the way, the color of the sail quickly changed to black, covered with red magic lines. Drink. Seeing the smashed sail, Sengoku punched it heavily. Boom. This one is. Sengoku looked in amazement at the completely changed sail. In his prediction, his punch just now could definitely smash the sails, and he planned to continue attacking Lancelot after smashing the sails. But the facts were completely contrary to what he thought. Not only was the sail not broken, but, from the collision just now, Zango clearly felt that the sail had become far harder than steel. Seeing that his attack was blocked by Sengoku, Lancelot raised the sail with a loud cry, and threw it at Sengoku again. It won't let you succeed. Garp quickly rushed in front of Lancelot, and slammed his iron fist on the head. Lancelot leaned back to avoid Garp's fist, and the sail in his hand changed direction and swung towards Garp's waist. Garp quickly withdrew his fist and blasted at the sail, facing Garp's iron fist. Even the sail strengthened by Lancelot suddenly snapped. Lancelot flicked the remaining sail at Garp, and knocked Garp in the direction of Sengoku. The surrounding sailors aimed at Lancelot opened fire quickly, firing a large number of bullets at Lancelot. However, facing the bullets fired by these soldiers, Lancelot did not dodge at all, and rushed towards the two sailors closest to him. The bullets just hit electric sparks on his black armor. Frozen time capsule. Of course, Kuzan would not let Lancelot rush into the soldiers like this, and quickly released the cold air from a distance, rushing towards Lancelot along the ice, in order to freeze him. However, facing the cold air that was about to seize him, Lancelot suddenly accelerated, quickly came to the front of the two sailors, grabbed the rifles in their hands with both hands, and threw the two of them towards his back. Immediately, the two soldiers were frozen by Kuzan's ice, and Lancelot raised the red and black rifle in his hand, and quickly pulled the trigger on the two soldiers. In Lancelot's hands, the rifle, which could only be shot once, turned into a machine gun, and their bullets flew from it continuously. Moreover, its speed far exceeded the limit that the rifle should have, so Jinpei, who was planning to rescue the two soldiers, was only halfway running when the bullet passed the soldier's body. The two soldiers frozen into ice shattered and scattered on the ice. You bastard! Seeing that his attack indirectly killed the Navy soldier, Kuzan frowned tightly, stretched out one hand, and pointed 5 fingers at Lancelot. A large amount of cold air gathered on his hand, and an ice bird quickly took shape in his hand, and quickly flew towards Lancelot. Facing Kuzan's attack, Lancelot changed the direction of his rifle and quickly shot at the ice bird. And when the ice bird was extremely close to Lancelot, it shattered in his bullets. Yeah, this kind of power is not two ordinary rifles can have. Kuzan lowered his arm. Marshal of the Warring States period. This guy seems to be able to strengthen what he holds. Okay, I know. But, fortunately, although his fighting skills are much better than Spartacus, he doesn't seem to be as immortal as Spartacus. We took him quickly. After the Warring States finished speaking, he quickly rushed towards Lancelot with the navy around him. However, as soon as Zango and others started, the dense rain of arrows rushed over. Reluctantly, Warring States could only stop and use shockwaves against the incoming bows and arrows. You seem to have forgotten my existence. Liu Angwen took back the bow in his hand, and slowly pulled it out. The boy Qiangang pinned to his waist. This is not allowed. I also want to do something for my dear all. Next, can I ask you to die honestly? Minamoto Reimitsu finished, jumped up suddenly, and in the air, a violent thunder flashed on the boy Qiangang. Page 302. When he reached the top of Sengoku, Minamoto Reimitsu's body fell suddenly and fell towards Sengoku. Seeing the thunder light above his head, Sengoku didn't dare to be careless. A more intense golden shockwave flew out of his hand, and flew towards Minamoto Ligwang above his head. Boom! After the violent explosion, Minamoto Reimitsu gracefully landed on the field, and the navy that was all around Lancelot quickly allocated half of its manpower to surround Minamoto Reimitsu. It seems that you are also a swordsman. Eagle-eyed Mihawk stepped forward, staring straight at the boy Kiriyasuna in Minamoto Reimiko's hand. It's really a good knife. Since Miyamoto Musashi is not here, let me see if it's okay. Blue Star, what about other swordsmen's methods? Where's the swordsman? Minamoto Reimitsu smiled. I'm probably considered a swordsman, but my current identity seems to be a berserker, and I don't seem to be able to call myself a swordsman. Mihawk raised the black knife and pointed at Yuan Ligwang. If you can swing the slash like just now, you can't be called a swordsman. Then many people who use swords in this world are not worthy of being called swordsman either. If you still have the self-esteem of a swordsman, please accept my challenge. As he said that, Hawkeye Mihawk looked at the other people around him. This woman, leave it to me, and you can deal with that. The person in black armor. Warring States nodded. In his heart, if Mihawk can deal with this woman with all his strength, it will be very beneficial to the Navy. With Hawkeye's strength, Sengoku believes that even if he can't defeat Minamoto Reimitsu, he can hold her back for a long time. Come on, Garp, come with me to deal with that black guy. After Sengoku turned his head and said to Garp, he wanted to walk towards Lancelot, who was fighting with Kizun and others. If a berserker can also be called a swordsman, isn't the guy behind you also a swordsman? Yuan Liguang said with a smile. Watch out, Hawkeye. Behind Mihawk, the voice of Jinbe, who is also Shikai Bukai, came over. Hawkeye frowned. Knowledgeable domineering quickly extended behind him, and at the same time his body turned back quickly. Soon, Hawkeye discovered that Lancelot rushed towards him with two long knives snatched from the ghost spider. Arthur! The screaming Lancelot's two swords slammed into Mihawk's black knife, and quickly fought him dozens of times. Oh! I didn't expect me to miss it. Mihawk took a step back, and pointed the knife at Lancelot with both hands. I didn't expect that since you have such sword skills. If so, then I will fight with you. Black knife dash. Flash. Mihawk's black knife rushed forward quickly, and at the same time, dozens of green sword chi accompanied the black knife, attacking Lancelot together. Lancelot immediately blocked the double knives in front of him, but was still knocked away by the huge force of Mihawk's black knives. Seeing Lancelot flying towards the distance, Mihawk followed quickly. It looks like the former #1 swordsman in the world has found a new opponent. So, from now on, let me be your opponent, Navy. Minamoto Liguang raised the corners of his mouth and smiled coldly. Men Reimitsu, do you think that you alone can block all of us? The ghost spider had blood on his scalp, looked at Minamoto Reimiko angrily and said, in the battle with Lancelot just now, the long knife controlled by the ghost spider's hair was grabbed by Lancelot's hands, and it was transformed into its own treasure with the ability of Knights Undead Unarmed. After that, the ghost spider couldn't continue to control the two knives, and was taken away by Lancelot with his own hair. Ghost spider, be careful, this guy is the woman who always follows Ziyun. Kizun walked to the side of Ghost Spider. Ziyun must be able to let her come over without worry because he has great confidence in her. Don't be careless. A lot of people. Raikou is really scared. Minamoto Yoriko looked around at the navy around him, and said with a smile, if that's the case, then Raikou has to call some helpers. Minamoto Reimitsu put the sword back into its sheath, and raised his hands slightly. Come on, the 4 heavenly kings. No, they are the envoys of the bullhead heavenly king. Take the shape of my memory and manifested here. As Minamoto Reimitsu sang, 444 women who looked exactly the same as Minamoto Reimitsu appeared beside her, and each of them holds a bow and arrow, a giant axe, a sword and a spear. Punishment, start. I will be careful not to overdo it. After all, Ziyun plans to use you in exchange for ransom. Minamoto Reimiko said with a smile. However, it seems that there is no need to keep so many people. Page 303. If it's a little off, it shouldn't matter. Then, everyone, next, for our king, I will become a ghost. You guys, be careful. After finishing speaking, Minamoto Reimitsu pulled out the Boikiri Yasuno again, and followed her movements. The avatars summoned by Yuan Liguang using the noble phantasm also started to move, scattered and rushed towards the surrounding enemies. Attention, the enemy is coming. Sengoku roared in alarm, and at the same time, he rushed forward, imprinting a clone holding a huge axe, preventing her from breaking into the camp of ordinary sailors. And Garp and Kizun met the clones holding the sword and bow and arrow respectively. The remaining avatars with guns were blocked by several marines and the remaining Shikai Bukai. It seems that no one is going to deal with me, so what should I do? Looking at the advanced combat power of a navy blocked by his clone, Minamoto Reimitsu looked at the surrounding navy with a sneer. It seems that my opponent is you. Boom, boom, boom. Seeing Minamoto Reimitsu looking at him, the surrounding soldiers immediately it rained bullets on her. But these ordinary bullets can't have any impact on Minamoto Reimiko at all. Minamoto Reimitsu just waved the Boikiri Yasuno lightly, and all the bullets were blown to their distance. It seems that you have also made up your mind. If this is the case, then I will not be polite. After speaking, Minamoto Reimitsu quickly rushed to the encirclement of the navy. At the same time, seeing Minamoto Reimitsu rushing towards him, his navy, immediately standing in front of ordinary soldiers, he waved his weapon at Minamoto Reimiko. Minamoto Reimitsu smiled. The hands moved too much, and in an instant, the admiral standing in front of her was split into pieces and sprinkled on the transparent ice. Without the resistance of the admiral, like a wolf in a herd of sheep, Riker quickly slaughtered the navy soldier who just thought of her pulling the trigger. All of a sudden, Jen, no one can block the source of Liguang. Damn it! How can you allow you to kill my soldiers at will? Seeing the blood and pieces of flesh flying around Minamoto Yorimitsu, Sengoku let out a loud roar, trying to get caught in the back by the axe of Minamoto Yorimitsu clone, and quickly approached Minamoto Yorimitsu himself. Minamoto Reimiko smiled, put the sword on his waist, and squatted down slightly. When Sengoku Jinhaixiangjian's fist reached in front of him, he swung the sword in his hand violently. Accompanied by a loud noise, Sengoku was brought over with a strong wind immediately. It was blocked by Yuan Liguang. And just when Sengoku wanted to continue swinging his fists to attack Minamoto Reimiko, a clone with an axe appeared above Sengoku's head. Moreover, on the axe in the hands of the breakup, the golden thunderlight continued to surge, which brought an extremely dangerous feeling to the warring states. Facing such an attack, Sengoku quickly turned around, while guarding against Minamoto Reimitsu behind him. A huge golden halo condensed on his hands and aimed at the clone above his head. At the same time, as if echoing the movement of the axe-wielding clone, the weapons of their sword-wielding clone and the spear-wielding clone emitted scorching flames and extremely cold air at the same time. And the bow-holding avatar even asked Kizun to jump far away. The bow and arrow in her hand was fully drawn by her, and a violent light green hurricane began to surround its bow and arrow. Looking at the movement of his avatar, Minamoto Reimitsu did not take this opportunity to pinch Sengoku, but jumped into the air suddenly, and the Boichi Anshina in his hand radiated a dazzling thunderlight, and the thunderlight quickly formed a huge energy on a sword. Plasma ball. In the eyes of the Navy, Minamoto Yorimitsu in the sky seems to be a second sun. Boom. With a loud noise, the attacks of each clone reached their opponents separately. Sengoku, who had been slashed on the back, was guarding Minamoto Reimitsu while the axe broke through the range of his golden shockwave and landed hard on his head. A large gash remained on his forehead. Sengoku, are you okay? His hands were changed because of blocking the attack of the sword-wielding avatar. There. Scorched Garp hurriedly came to Sengoku's side and asked. It's okay, it's just a skin injury. Zango shook his head. Fortunately, my body is very hard under the ability of the devil fruit. Otherwise I would have suffered serious injuries just now. Page 304. But that's not the question now, Cap. Zango looked solemnly at the huge plasma ball shining in the sky. Those guys dissipated after the attack just now, but the attack of the deity above the head has not fallen yet. Everyone, be on high alert and prepare for the impact. Kuzin, who had a lot of wounds on his body because of blocking the hurricane bow and arrow, came over. Marshal of the Warring States. Lieutenant General Garp, please stop there. Thunderlight above with me, otherwise, our soldiers can't stop it attacking. Sengoku nodded, stood up again, and at the same time, the golden light on his body shone even more, as if resisting the light emitted by Minamoto Reimiko. Garp, strike with all your strength, smash that thunderlight. Garp nodded, squatted down. There, veins on his forehead popped up, and then he jumped suddenly, rushing towards Minamoto Reimitsu in the sky. At the same time, Sengoku and Kuzin, as well as the Vice Admiral who was still able to move, also jumped up and rushed towards Yuan Liguang. Shikibukai Jinpei, who was the only one still present, paused for a moment, followed behind their Navy, and rushed towards Minamoto Reimitsu. Ha 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 ha. Seeing the Marines rushing towards him, Minamoto Reimitsu smiled softly. Let it all be reduced to ashes, Ziyun's enemies. Nu Wang Zhao Tan Wang Hue Hue. Drink. The boy Kirian's Yuna in Minamoto Reimiko's hand swung downward, and the plasma ball on their sword turned into extremely high temperature lightning, which quickly swallowed up Sengoku and the others, covering their figures in a blink of an eye. Lu reminds you 3 things about reading, bookmark, push. Warring States, Kuzan, and others. Are you alright? After the lightning dissipated, Garp swam out of the sea with his whole body scorched black. Although Sengoku, Garp and others blocked Minamoto's attack from falling on the ordinary Navy soldiers, they failed to reach Minamoto's side. They were all bombarded by the lightning on the ice surface, and then the high temperature of the lightning quickly melted the nearby ice layer, bringing most of the nearby people into their bottom of the sea. As a devil fruit user, Sengoku forcibly changed the direction of his body when he noticed that their ice was about to melt. At this moment, he is stepping on the moon cloth and staying in the air. At the same time, Kuzin also used his fruit ability to continuously strengthen the ice under his body so that he would not fall into the sea. Fortunately, although Sengoku and the others did not completely prevent the fall of Minamoto's noble phantasm, they still bought time for the soldiers below to escape. At this moment, they were standing far away on the ice in front of them, watching Garp nervously. And others. Lieutenant General Garp, I'm fine. Kizin stretched out his hand and pressed the ice under his feet, turning the surrounding sea water into ice again. It's just that I didn't expect that every one of Ziyun's companions would be such a troublesome one. Sengoku fell around Garp, looking at the Marines who were caught by Garp and Jinbai. Are you all okay? How are you doing? Report to Marshal Warring States. Our situation is fine. In the middle of Huasha-shan, I stood up with difficulty. It's just that I can't support the next battle. My body is really exhausted. It's alright. Leave the rest to us. You and other people who can act. Take the injured people and get away from here first. Saying that, Sengoku turned his head to look at Minamoto Reimitsu who fell from the sky on their ice not far away. Garp, this guy released such a powerful attack just now. He must be in a weak state for a while. We take advantage of this time to quickly take her down. Garp nodded, agreeing with Sengoku. And when Sengoku and Garp were about to act, a more intense thunderlight began to shine on Minamoto Reimitsu's sword. Ah, it looks like I underestimated everyone. Minamoto Reimitsu walked towards Garp and the others and said, I didn't expect that my noble phantasm didn't cause any trouble to everyone. Sure enough, did I use too little force? It's such a hassle. It's a difficult task to keep an eye out for all of you. Minamoto Reimiko shook his head. After all, if you all have money, you can exchange it for ransom. Yes, there is no more. However, if it is appropriate to double the magic power, you should still not die. You bastard. The attack just now. Can we continue? Sengoku looked at Minamoto Reimiko solemnly and said, Ah, you think Kai and Spartacus are the same type, don't you? Minamoto Reimitsu looked at Sengoku with a funny face. Although we are both berserkers, there is still a big difference between me and him. At least, I can still do things like this kind of treasure phantasm bursting out. Beautiful lightning. At this moment, the voice of a neutral man came to Zango's ears. It's you, Tesla. Minamoto Reimiko looked up, looked at Tesla who was standing in the air stepping on their lightning ladder, and said, Do you want to make a move too? Page 305. Tesla nodded, seeing Miss Minamoto's beautiful lightning, as the incarnation of lightning. I can't keep silent anymore. Really, since this is the case, the next thing will be left to you. After all, I really can't control the strength to capture them. As a scientist, you must be very good at calculating strength. Minamoto turned his head to look at Sengoku. However, let's wait until this attack is over. After finishing speaking, Minamoto Reimitsu turned around, swung the sword in his hand at Sengoku and others fiercely, and a large number of purple thunders turned into dragons and quickly attacked Sengoku, Garp and others. Originally because of Tesla's arrival, Zango and others who focused on Tesla felt the thunder and lightning coming from the pavement, reacted quickly, and used their own methods to defend. This time Minamoto's lightning lasted for several minutes before it ended. After the lightning disappeared, Garp and others appeared in a state of distress. Sengoku, who had been wounded by Minamoto Reimitsu's Zack's clone, recovered his human form from his devil fruit state. And Hikesha Jinping finally couldn't hold on anymore and fell on the ice. Fortunately, there were no other navy soldiers on the straight line of Minamoto Reimitsu's attack. Therefore, what the warring states feared did not happen. Then, I'll leave it to you, Tesla. Minamoto Reimitsu smiled, turned into a spiritual child and flew towards Ziyun. Let me also see what kind of ability you have to control thunder and lightning with your mortal body. Minamoto's voice came from afar. Although Minamoto Reimitsu said he would leave it to me, are you sure you want to fight me? Tesla looked at Sengoku and the others below him. Although your navy's top-level combat power has not been lost, there is only one Shikibukai left, fighting. As he spoke, Tesla looked at Lancelot and Hawkeye who were fighting not far away. However, even Hawkeye, the former world's #1 swordsman, cannot defeat Lancelot and come to your aid. He hasn't drawn out his sword yet. Hearing Tesla's words, Zango and the others couldn't help but look down, and turned their heads slightly to look at Lancelot and Mihawk who were slashing at each other quickly. The guy who fought against Hawkeye hasn't shown his true strength yet. Kizin sighed, frowning. Of course, Lancelot is a swordsman. A very good knight. Do you think he contributed 100% without taking out his own sword? Tesla said. Besides, until now, my master Ziyun and other partners have not attacked you yet. Therefore, I still advise you to give up resistance and live in our prison honestly for a period of time. Or, you are still there. Hope that people from the world government can come out to help you. Tesla shook his head. As soon as those guys invaded the Chambord Islands, they were discovered by Gilgamesh. Presumably at this moment, they are bearing the warm entertainment of the king. Well, there's no way they're going to help you. Hearing Tesla's words, Sengoku couldn't help but frown. Who are you? I haven't seen your face before. Are you Ziyunxin's partner? Oh, speaking of it, I haven't introduced myself yet. For a gentleman, that's really rude. Tesla tidied up his tie slightly, and looked at Zango and the others seriously. My name is Nikola Tesla, and I am a genius to assume the identity of a scientist in Blue Star. I heard that in your navy, there is a scientist who claims to have knowledge 500 years ahead of today's technology, and you call him a scientist who surpasses human wisdom by 500 years. Tesla tilted his head, and said with a confident smile, however, even if he is really so powerful, the only really smart scientist in this world is me, Nikola Tesla. Scientists actually want to go to the front line. You, Blue Star, are really unique. Zango frowned and said, however, it is impossible for us to give up resistance. Even if we are indeed consumed by you, your companions must have consumed a lot of energy. After speaking, warring states, who took a break for a while, turned into a golden Buddha again, expressing his thoughts with actions. At the same time, the navies who were relatively far away quickly came under Tesla and pointed their weapons at him. If that's the case, then no one has anything to talk about. Tesla shook his head. I heard that the Navy's Marshal of the Warring States period has a smart general. I thought I could use words to let you know that your actions have failed. Page 306. However, it seems that we still need to show some strength. I have a lot of research to do in a while, So you're wasting your time. Tesla raised his right hand with a metal glove above his head. You will continue to get electrocuted. Oh, let's take a look. Because the thunder of God is here. Navyman, open wide eyes. This is the power of thunder and lightning controlled by the god of man. Human mythology, General Thunder and Lightning. Following Tesla's voice, a circular electric arc shining with purple light appeared above Tesla's head, and as time passed, the range of the purple light circle became larger and larger, and in a blink of an eye, it enveloped the sky above the Navy. The whole sky. Not good. Seeing the scene in the sky, after experiencing the attacks of Spartacus and Minamoto, Reimitsu's noble phantasms, Sengoku's heart beat wildly. If that kind of lightning falls, there will definitely be a large number of casualties in the Navy present, which is not what the Warring States wants to see. In order to prevent such a situation from happening, Warring States immediately take the Warring States and rush towards Tesla. But Kizin spun around and stayed where he was. Kizin slapped his hands on the ice. Layers of ice spewed out from his palms, and soon formed a huge semicircle above all the Navy. Ice cover. Just this level is not enough. Kizin frowned, and increased the transmission of cold air again, and the thickness of the ice cover was also continuously superimposed. It's useless, with all of you now, you can't stop my treasure. Tesla looked down at Sengoku and Garp. The purple electric circle above his head quickly concentrated on his raised right hand, and finally, only a small blue plasma ball was formed on his hand. Although the huge electric circle in the sky disappeared, Sengoku and Garp did not feel at ease, but became more worried. Their knowledge was domineering, and they clearly felt that there was extremely terrifying energy in that blue plasma ball. Fall down. With his right hand down, Tesla aimed the plasma ball at Sengoku and Garp. After pausing for a second, the blue plasma ball shattered, scattered into huge blue electric columns and fell downward. Before Sengoku and Garp had time to make extra moves, they were instantly swallowed up, and then slammed into the huge ice shield made by Kizin. Boom. Damn it, you must hold on. The violent collision instantly caused Kizin, who was maintaining the ice cover, to spit out a mouthful of blood. Kizin stood up. 2 streaks of ice shot out from his hands, stuck on the ice layer he made, and strengthened the ice layer with all his strength. However, even if Kizin has tried his best, there is still no way to stop the collapse of the ice layer. Can't do it. Veins protruded from Kizin's head, looking at the ice layer that did not break the lines. Everyone, get ready for the shock. At this time, Kizin had no other choice. In the battle just now, he has consumed too much physical strength, and now he will soon reach his limit. In this case, it must be enough for the Warring States to realize their failure and accept our prisoners. Ziyan suddenly appeared beside Tesla, and said calmly. At the same time, Ziyan also instantly used his telekinetic power to create a layer of telekinetic shield in the ice layer created by Kizin. Under the continuous bombardment of Tesla's lightning, Kizin's ice shield finally shattered. However, what the Navy didn't expect was that the thunder and lightning didn't really come down to attack them. In their eyes, a light green light curtain blocked them. Looking at the green light curtain in front of him, Kizin fixed his eyes and quickly looked in Tesla's direction. It's you, Ziyan. Looking at Ziyan beside Tesla, Kizin said solemnly. Meet you again, Kizin. Ziyan looked at Kuzan and said with a smile, but instead of caring about me, shouldn't you care about your Warring States Marshal and Navy heroes? Just now, I didn't help them defend. Tesla's ability just now is against the city level. Even Sengoku and Garp, it's not easy to think about it. Hearing Ziyan's words, Kizin quickly looked at Garp and the two who were tightly attached to the microgreen telekinetic cover. And Ziyan also unlocked his ability at the right time, causing Garp and Sengoku to fall towards the Navy below. Page 307. Kizin quickly jumped up and caught the 2 people who were covered in scorched black and only a few strips of cloth remained on their clothes. Marshal of the Warring States period, Lieutenant General Garp, are you two all right? Kizin looked anxiously at the 2 people who were placed on the ice by him and said, cough, cough. Garp opened his closed eyes. It's Kizin, I'm fine, it's just that my body hurts. What happened to Sengoku and the others? The others are fine. Ziyan finally defended against the falling thunder light, but Marshal of their Warring States period. As he said that, Kizin looked at Zango, who was in a coma, but his expression was extremely painful, and he was a little speechless. Seeing Kizin's appearance, Garp struggled to get up and came to Sengoku. Hey, hello. Warring States, wake me up. As he said that, Garp slapped Sengoku twice. Lieutenant General Garp. Kizin stared blankly at Garp. Cough. You old fellow. Do you want to kill me? Warring States finally woke up. I don't think I was killed by the enemy, but I will die at the hands of you old fellow. Are you awake, Sengoku? Ziyan took Tesla and slowly fell from the sky not far from Kuzan and the others. It seems that you have suffered serious injuries. Warring States, how about it? Do you still want to fight us? Ziyan, you bastard. With Kizan's help, Zango stood up tremblingly. I won't want you to compromise, even if it's my life. I will kill you this time. Even so, Warring States has no hope of defeating Ziyan and Tesla in front of him. However, he still fantasizes that people from the world government on the Chambord Islands can arrive in time to help them eliminate Ziyun. He did know that the team of the world government this time was led by a 5-old star. Although he is not very clear about his strength, but his former boss, the former Admiral Steel Gyuk Kong, told him that Wu Loxing has the strength to easily defeat Kong. With such strength, Warring States believes that as long as the 5-old stars finish handling the affairs on the Chambord Islands, they will definitely come back to assist the Navy. Really, can't you honestly admit defeat? Ziyun shook his head, raised his right hand above his head, and soon, a huge purple electric circle like Tesla just now appeared above his head. Ziyun put away his smile, looked at Zanko and the others indifferently, pointed his right hand at them, and the plasma ball gathered by the purple electric circle shone dangerously in Ziyun's hand. At the same time, a strong spiritual pressure suddenly fell on the mariners. The weak Navy immediately knelt down on the ground, and a lot of sweat began to emerge from their bodies. If it wasn't for Ziyun not using all of the spiritual pressure, and the great spiritual pressure was controlled by people with relatively strong strength such as the Warring States, these soldiers could not resist the pressure and died directly. Different from domineering and domineering, spiritual pressure is very lethal to weaker people. This is a warning, Sengoku. I'm not expecting anything, but, as far as I am concerned, I don't necessarily want to capture you and exchange them with the Navy for ransom. My patience is almost at the limit, and I'm going to die with all the navies with your meaningless expectations. Well, or be captured by me obediently. I will give you 20 seconds to think about it. After a few seconds, if you still don't agree, most of the Navy's high-end combat power will disappear from this world. Wait, Ziyun. Seeing that Ziyun was going to be serious, Carp said hastily. Instead of trying to persuade me, you should persuade your old buddy, Cap. Now, there are still 13 seconds, Ziyun said lightly. Warring States. Carp looked eagerly at Sengoku. Sengoku frowned tightly, and looked around at the naval soldiers behind him. Although in the face of Ziyun's intimidation, no one in the Navy said anything to give up, but many Navy have shown expressions of fear. 5 seconds left. Following Ziyun's words, the thunder in his hand began to rage outward, as if it would swallow everyone in the Navy at any moment. Hey, Zanko sighed. We admit defeat. Ziyun, please stop. In the hearts of the Warring States, there is still no way to block the lives of all the navies here on the side of the world government. Page 308. Even if the people of the world government defeat the Drake pirates under the leadership of their 5-old stars, if they refuse to admit defeat now, the Navy here will die. Huge loss. Warring States. Garp looked at Sengoku, who seemed to be more than 10 years old in lava, and was a little speechless. The other Navy soldiers also looked depressed, and slowly put down the weapons in their hands. Seeing the actions of the Warring States and the Navy, Ziyun smiled, adjusted the direction of his right hand, and aimed at the sky. In an instant, it was as if a huge blue thunder point connecting the sky and the earth erupted from Ziyun's hands, and even people on other surrounding islands far away from their Chambord Islands could clearly see the intense lightning. You made a wise choice, Sengoku. Ziyun took Tesla into the Navy and said, in order to let you understand this point, and also to make you fully realize your failure, I will take you to the island to see the situation of the people of the world government. If we act fast, perhaps, you can still see the scene of their defeat. So, things here are over? Tsunade hugged Ziyun from behind, letting his body stick tightly to his back. Spartacus's body is fine, Tsunade. Ziyun rubbed Tsunade's head on his shoulder, and said softly. The tone has completely lost the coldness of talking with the Warring States. Don't worry, he just needs to rest for a day. After recovering his magic power and physical strength, he will be able to say love again. Already, Tsunade said with a smile, to be honest, I think he is cuter in his current state. Usually, that guy's experience is too vigorous. Haha, there's nothing you can do about it. After all, he's Spartacus. The corner of Ziyun's mouth curled up, and he patted Tsunade's arm on his waist and continued, next, I'll leave this to you. The poison prepared for the Navy should have already been prepared. Of course, I am very concerned about the things you entrust to me, Yun. Tsunade let go. Ziyun took out the scroll pinned behind him and slapped it on the ground. As she made camp, a large number of vials appeared on the ice. There are also skulls on the top of the medicine bottle, so that the Navy knows that this is not a good thing. Okay, everyone, since you have already conceded defeat, then hurry up and get the medicine. Tsunade stood up, with his hands on his hips. Don't worry, the quantity is enough. Each of you has a share. Okay, in this way, everyone was finished their medication. Tsunade clapped his hands and turned to look at Ziyun. Yun, it's very hard for me to dispense medicine to so many people. Moreover, they have to guarantee their medication dosage these days. How are you going to compensate me? Ziyun smiled. Later, let me give you a massage instead, just to let you, the massage master, see how my skills are. Okay, then I look forward to this first. Tsunade said with a smile. Ziyun nodded, turned his head to look at Zanko and Kusan, and took out 2 Heialu stone handcuffs from the treasure house of Babylon and threw them to them. You too. It's not that I don't trust you, it's just that you've gone through the process. Don't think too much about it. Hey, hello. We've all taken your doctor's medicine, and now our bodies are very weak. Even if we can use the ability of the devil fruit, it won't be able to exert much effect. Do you still need these handcuffs now? Kizin said dissatisfied. It's better to give preferential treatment to you two devil fruit users, Ziyun said. Seeing Ziyun's persistence, Zango and Kuzan had no choice but to put on Heilish's handcuffs. After seeing that everything here was almost resolved, Ziyun looked at Lancelot and Hawkeye. Mihawk was still playing. If it goes on like this, it will take a long time. Ziyun shook his head and shouted to Lancelot, Lancelot, it's almost time to throw away the two katanas in your hand and take out your own sword. Lancelot, who was fighting with Mihawk, heard Ziyun's voice, yelled, and slashed down with both swords, forcing Mihawk back temporarily, and quickly threw two knives at him. After that, a pitch-black sword appeared in Lancelot's hand. Lancelot, who took out his sword, suddenly accelerated and rushed towards Mihawk. Hawkeye, who had just avoided the dagger thrown by Lancelot, just turned around and saw their long sword that was slashed head-on. Immediately, page 309 raised his black knife, and swung it towards the longsword from bottom to top. Boom. Yeah, the power has grown. Stared wide-eyed at the longsword in Lancelot's hand. The undestroyed lake light. Is it because of the sword? Before Mihawk had time to think about it, Lancelot began to swing his longsword at Mihawk continuously, at a faster and faster speed. Strength and speed have been upgraded by a level. Is this your true power, Lancelot? Hawkeye stared at the black-armored knight in front of him and said. But the only reply to Hawkeye was Lancelot's roar. And yes, not the other that popped out. 2 words. Can't communicate. Hawkeye sighed. Since a person with such sword skills has fallen into madness, is it caused by the Arthur you said? Is that King Arthur Artoria? Hawkeye shook his head, and continued to attack Lancelot with his own black knife. I really want to fight against you, irrational, and you at that time must be able to truly display your due sword skills. You don't have to worry about that, Ziyun said on the periphery of the battle between Lancelot and Hawkeye. Even if Lancelot fell into madness, his unparalleled martial arts were not affected in any way, and he was still able to display his original skills. However, it seems that even Lancelot needs to spend some time to solve you. In this case, you can fight slowly here now, and come to you later. After speaking, Ziyun used telekinetic power to lead Tsunade, Tesla and a group of Marines to the Chambord Islands. In order to prevent them from the Warring States period from discovering Hancock, Sun and others on the island, Ziyun deliberately changed the direction and flew to the Chambord Islands. Regarding the whereabouts of the bear, although he kept the Navy away, Ziyun, who was always observing the situation on Chambord Island, still found the bear's trace. At this moment, he is secretly watching Gilgamesh and Wu Loxing and others fighting with the Revolutionary Army Dragon and others. Ziyun, where did you take Empress Hancock? Sengoku frowned and asked if he didn't see Hancock, who was taken away by Ziyun in the sky above the Chambord Islands. You care about her? She doesn't seem to be from your navy either. She Wu Hai or something. It's the same for a pirate, isn't it all right? Ziyun smiled and said, as for her whereabouts, since she took the initiative to send her to the door, of course I arranged for her to go to a good place. Speaking of which, it seems that your Navy's Shikibukai policy also needs to be lifted. Moonlight Warrior was killed, and Doflamingo also broke a leg, and his strength will definitely drop in the future. It seems that there are not many people in your Navy's Shikibukai who can use it. However, that Doflamingo is quite decisive. Ziyun shook his head. After the leg was broken, he quickly left the battlefield and left the scope of this island. Ziyun looked at the warring states behind him. The Chi Wu Hai of your class is not good enough. You are too irresponsible. I suggest you deal with Doflamingo well after you go back. Of course, after your people pay the ransom. You don't need to worry about this matter, I will do it later. Just when Sengoku wanted to continue to say something, the sound of weapons clashing reached his ears. Deviant's sword. We have arrived. Ziyun led the warring states and others to their whereabouts quickly, and soon, the figures of Gilgamesh, Li Shiwen, Emiya Shiru and the 5 old stars with swords appeared in front of everyone. In addition to these people, there are also a large number of people from the world government lying underground, but at this moment, these people have a lot of wounds on their bodies, and the blood has already penetrated the ground below them, and they have already bid farewell to this world. It's over for me. Jill, are you still playing? Ziyun looked at Gilgamesh, who was standing on the roof of a famous house, looking down at the 5 old stars and said, well, this can be regarded as killing time. Gilgamesh smiled, jumped off the roof, and walked in front of Ziyun. This bald man holding a sword is quite interesting, so I just played with him for a while. However, these people lying in the ground are not so lucky. Page 310. Wei Gong waved his hand. Originally, Li Shiwen and I planned to make a move, But the King of Heroes killed most of the people here as soon as we met each other. Guy from the spear of their world government. However, just such a guy was nailed to the ground after the King of Heroes took out the sky lock. Now there is only such a 5-old star left, and the King of Heroes seems to be determined to end the battle alone, so I have no chance to fight after drinking. Mr. Lee. Isn't that good too? Lee Shuwen laughed. It's also good for my old man's waist. Hey, your boxing skills are recognized even by the King of Heroes. You won't have any back problems if you are so tough, Gilgamesh said with a smile. However, since you are all back, it is about time for me to end their battle. After speaking, Gilgamesh turned to look at Wuloxing, who was holding a sword. How so? Looking at the people lying on the ground, Zango was shocked. Can even the spear of their world government be killed so easily? Warring states, it's not good. Garp looked at the many wounds on his body, and even the big sharp knife in his hand was broken, said Wuloxing with a sword. Warring states, have they already failed? The 5-old stars holding the sword looked at Gilgamesh, Ziyan and others solemnly. It seems that the operation has failed. Blue Star's strength is definitely not as simple as we imagined before. We must go back and tell others. In the battle just now, the 5-old stars with swords couldn't get close to Gilgamesh at all, and the dense golden weapons left him with only the power to parry. If it was just an ordinary weapon, Wuloxing with a sword would have full confidence in crushing them and attacking Gilgamesh directly. However, after the initial trial, Gilgamesh took out more and more powerful treasures. If it weren't for the armed color domineering covering the 5-old star's big sharp knife, it would have broken at this moment. Come on, Wuloxing. Among mortals, it is indeed not bad to be able to reach your level. I, King Gilgamesh, have recognized you a little bit, so before you lose, more power will come and I will be happy. Gilgamesh said. Chill, this guy doesn't need to stay. Ziyan patted Gilgamesh on the shoulder. Give him death directly. Gilgamesh smiled. It seems that your luck is bad. You don't even have the chance to become a slave. Now, all you can do is to show your strength as a good fighter. No, I can't die here. Jian Wuloxing thought in his heart. Under such circumstances, he no longer has the idea of defeating the Drake pirates. In his heart, even this golden hero king, he no longer has the confidence to defeat him. After all, from the beginning to the present, none of his attacks touched Gilgamesh, and were all smashed by his shining golden weapon. Holding the sword, Wuloxing moved very quickly. After deciding to leave, he immediately turned round, stepped on the speed of the mooncloth, escaped from the encirclement of Zuyan and others, and flew towards the sky at extreme speed. Really? Coward. Gilgamesh frowned and looked at the 5-old stars flying into the sky with swords. I still think you are a good swordsman. Gilgamesh shook his head. Forget it. In the final analysis, the people of the world government are only at this level. However, since my best friend asked me to rule this island, I must declare to the people of this world that Gilgamesh, my hero king, is here. Gilgamesh's own king's key appeared in Gilgamesh's hands, and after a slight twist, the king's key turned into red magic lines that spread across the sky. This is. Imiyashiru widened his eyes. Hey, you don't mean to use that? Hi and the others also stared wide-eyed when they saw the mysterious red trace. Soon, the red magic line began to retract in front of Gilgamesh, forming a golden ball of light. The ball of light moved up slowly, and a cylindrical short sword with red lines appeared, which was held by Gilgamesh. 5-old stars. The time for judgment has come. Gilgamesh's body slowly floated up, and the deviation sword in his hand began to spin, and there crimson energy surrounded him, covering his figure. And after the scarlet energy dissipated, Gilgamesh's feet suspended in the air. A scene like a starry sky appeared. The deviant sword it held high also gradually formed the crimson starry sky. What the hell is that? Sengoku stared in horror at the weapon that instantly changed the sky. Although Kizan and Garp did not speak, they were also staring closely at the deviant sword in Gilgamesh's hand. And the scene here also caught the eye of Bbook, who was still fighting with Lancelot, and couldn't help being shocked by the power of Blue Star again. However, in the face of Lancelot's onslaught, Bbook once again threw himself into the battle with all his strength. Page 311. The sword that splits the world for me. Accept it, miscellaneous cultivator. Heaven and earth. Leave the star of Pizzy. He ha 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 ha. Accompanied by Gilgamesh's voice, he pointed the deviant sword high into the sky. He swung it violently, aiming at Wuloxing, who was fleeing in the distance. Soon, a huge crimson light cannon was released from the deviation sword, and rushed towards the sword-wielding Wuloxing at a very high speed. That is, Wuloxing, who was running away with all his strength, only had time to look back before being overwhelmed by the crimson light cannon, and instantly smashed to pieces by the berserk energy in it. Not even the supreme sharp knife in his hand can escape the broken end. After the crimson light cannon wiped out the sword-wielding Wuloxing, it didn't dissipate, but continued to rush forward. In the blink of an eye, he came to the front of the Red Earth continent. The solid red soil continent did not act as a hindrance to the power of the deviation sword. Liberation and was directly opened a big hole by it. And after penetrating the red Earth continent, the crimson light cannon began to shrink slowly, and finally turned into magic particles and slowly dissipated in this world. What's going on? What happened? Marijoa, the highest peak of the red Earth continent, and the 4 elder stars felt the strong shock, and left the office one after another, and went outside. As the only supercontinent in the world, the red Earth continent has never experienced any earthquakes. When the tremor happened at this time, the 5 old stars felt that something man-made happened. That is, after leaving the office, what the 5 old stars saw was a huge pillar of crimson light that was rapidly dissipating. Although the beam of light has shown signs of collapsing, their knowledgeable and domineering energy can still be felt from it. That direction should be the direction of the Chambord Islands. The blonde Wuloxing said, this kind of attack was not sent by our people. Could it be that something unexpected happened over there? If this is the case, then the situation is not good. The curly-beard Wuloxing said, however, we still have to wait and see. You are also clear about that person's strength. It shouldn't fail. Compared to this, the 4 of us should go to see if the shock just now has affected Lord Yim's deep sleep. That's what we should be doing right now. Let's go. Let's go to Master Harem now. The bearded man looked deeply at the pothole left by Gilgamesh's deviant sword on the red Earth continent. If it really affected the adult's deep sleep, we should explain it to him. The other 5 old stars reconsidered and walked towards the place where Yima was. I didn't lie to you, Sengoku. Looking at Zango's mouth, Ziyan said with a smile, those who place their hopes on their world government have no hope. Alright, you guys have shut up your mouths, just stay in the cell for a few days. Honestly. However, since you are the Admiral of the Navy, when the time comes, I hope you can make a good decision on the ransom. Chill, let me use the dungeon in your palace first. Ziyan said. Gilgamesh withdrew his deviant sword, and nodded to Ziyan, you can use it as you like, my best friend. Ziyan smiled, and planned to lead the Navy to the dungeon of the Golden Palace. Wait, that is Wuloxing really dead? Warring States grabbed Ziyan and said, do you think he can still survive under such an attack? Ziyan shook his head, broke away from Zango's arm, and ignored Zango who was about to say something. Using telekinetic power to lead Zango and others, quickly flew towards the palace. Soon, Ziyan put everything in the Navy into prison. As for Jinping of Kyuhai, Ziyan also arranged him with Hai Hai and others. Okay, let's talk about the ransom next. He took out a golden chair from the treasure house of Babylon and sat down, looking at the Marshal of the Warring States period in the prison. Now I have locked him in the prison. What kind of feeling does it feel? You bastard. Hearing Yan Tiao's jokes, Zango slapped the door of the prison with his palm. Boom. Happened suddenly. Page 312. The explosion stunned everyone, and at the same time, the navy that was closer to the Warring States period, including the Warring States period, was blown to the wall. I forgot to tell you, this prison was built by Gilgamesh with special materials. I also specially added a lot of things to it. Ziyan smiled, and pulled out a rune with his hand. If you attack different places from inside, you will have different reactions. Explosions, flames, ice, etc. If you want to escape, you can try it. Maybe you can find a place where there are no traps. Ziyan, help us stabilize these people's injuries first. Garp hugged a sailor who was implicated by the explosion and became, said the dying sailor. Although the explosion just now was nothing to the Warring States period, it was fatal enough to many ordinary soldiers. Ziyan shook his head, took out some medical supplies from the golden air ripples, and threw them into the cell through the crack of the cell door. There should still be medical soldiers among you, handle it yourself. Hearing Ziyan's words, the medical soldiers did not need Garp's orders. They acted quickly, picked up Ziyan's medical supplies and began to treat the wounded. Can we talk now, Sengoku? Ziyan said. Zango wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, walked across to Ziyan, and sat down on the ground. What do you want to let us go? A devil fruit, plus 50 billion berry. You can leave safely, Ziyan said. Impossible. Sengoku raised his tone. Even our navy can't produce so many devil fruits. We have given you a lot of devil fruits before. Moreover, all of our berries have just been taken away by that bastard Peluslino, so we won't be able to get that much money out in a short time. Warring States, I hope you know that I am not here to bargain with you, Ziyan said indifferently. I just came to inform you. It's just my request. Moreover, the bounty of any 4 emperors team can easily reach 100 billion berry. And dare to offer such a bounty, I think your navy can still come up with this little money, isn't it? Otherwise, one day a certain 4 emperor pirates will be wiped out by bounty hunters, but you can't get the bounty. Isn't this making people laugh? Ziyan took out a phone bug from his pocket and threw it to Zango. Here, ordinary phone bugs cannot communicate with the outside world. Besides, the phone bug has its number on it. Ziyan waved his hand and continued. This phone bug, we have used some special methods here to allow him to communicate with the outside world through the partition of the palace. Next, you can use this to talk to your navy, or ask the world government for money. After tomorrow, I need to get an answer. If I don't get a satisfactory answer by then Then you guys will give me a lifetime job here. Ziyun smiled. Trust me, I have a way to do what I say. Seeing Sengoku frowning, Ziyun turned to look at Hakusha Jinbei who had woken up. Then, it's time to talk about your problem, Jinbei, since you came to attack us. Then, it is reasonable to pay some price. Ziyun said. Wait, Ziyun, didn't the ransom you just mentioned include Chiyu-hai? Seeing that Ziyun was going to ask Jinbei for a ransom alone, Sengoku hurriedly asked. Of course, Shikibukai is not the Navy. Ziyun shook his head. Although they came here at your call, they belong to the pirate side. After all, so naturally they should be counted separately. Of course, if your Navy is willing to help him pay the ransom, I'm still willing to let him go. However, there are more than one Chiyu-hai caught by me. The Empress Hancock, the Tyrant Bear, and the Eagle-Eyed Mihawk are all in this category. If you want to help them pay the ransom, you have to help them pay together. As for their ransom, for 4 people, it's only 40 billion berry, and no one has a one devil fruit. The 4 of them cost 40 billion berry. We have so many people here, but it's only 50 billion berry. Page 313. Zango quickly said. Yeah, you reminded me. Warring States, thank you. Ziyun nodded. You have admirals, heroes, and admirals here, plus so many lieutenant generals of the Navy headquarters, and so many elite Navy soldiers. The bid is 50 billion berry. I really underestimate you. Ziyun slapped himself on the palm of the hand. It's decided. Let's take your Navy's 00 billion berries. How about it? Are you satisfied now, Marshal of the Warring States? Ziyun looked at Warring States with a smile on his face. You guy. Warring States got up angrily, wanting to rush to the iron railing again. Garp quickly stopped him. Calm down, Sengoku. This is not like you. Zango took a deep breath, sat down on the ground, buried his head down, and tried his best to endure anger towards Ziyun in his heart. Okay, that's about all I want to say. Ziyun stood up. Jinping, if the Navy is unwilling to pay your share of the ransom, then it's up to you. However, no matter what, you are also the captain of the Sun Pirates, and with 10 billion redemption and a 1 demon power, you should still be able to take it. That phone bug, you can use it too, no matter. It doesn't matter whether you are calling the King of Murloc Island, or your fellow pirates. As long as you can afford the ransom, you can leave safely. However, you must not let them rescue you. At that time, some things may happen that you don't want to see. Hearing Ziyun's words, Jinping frowned tightly. However, he did not intend to refute Ziyun's words. In his heart, he was originally the invading party. He was captured but not killed, and he could still be freed by paying a ransom. Among the pirates, this is a kind of benevolence. And he still believes in the reputation of the Drake Pirates. After all, Jinbei still understands the many transactions between the Navy and the Drake Pirates. Seeing that Sengoku and the others and Jinping had nothing to say, Ziyun quickly left the cell, leaving space for them. Marshal of the Warring States. How should we pay them an extra 50 billion berry? Kizan asked confusedly. The extra 50 billion can be said to have been created by the Warring States. But Kizan couldn't say much to their marshal. Only pay. What else can I do? Remorseful, Zango shook his head. Ziyun. It's clear that he wants to embarrass me. If I keep arguing with him, we need to pay more and more. However, it is very difficult for the Navy to spend so much money all at once. And there is also a ransom from Shikibukai, Kizan said with difficulty. Sengoku looked at Jinbei hesitantly. To be honest, he really wants Chiyu-hai to be responsible for his own ransom, but if he really does this, it may be very difficult to summon Chiyu-hai next time. Difficulty. Hey, Warring States side, picked up the phone bug on the ground. Let me report to the world government what's going on here. For the remuneration, we also need to ask them for support. If the Navy is paying so much money alone, we may have a mutiny because we can't afford the military expenses. Warring States dialed the number of Mary Kye Adam, Wuloxing. Soon, the call was connected by Wuloxing who came back from Im's place. This is Warring States. I have something very important to report. As soon as the phone was connected, Zango said quickly. It's you, Sengoku. The deep voice of the blonde Wuloxing came from the phone. I hope to hear good news from you. Sorry, our operation failed. Zango hesitated for a moment, and continued. Now, we are being imprisoned by Ziyun and the others. He needs a large amount of ransom before he will let us leave here. That's it. I'm very disappointed in you, Sengoku. Page 314. The blonde Wuloxing said gloomily. You have already fought so many times, yet you still fail. What happened to Wuloxing who went to the Chambord Islands? Won't he be captured too? Hearing Wuloxing's words, Warring States chief sighed, and began to report the situation of the operation to the other side of the phone. We already know the matter. We need to discuss this matter first, and we will tell you the result later. After finishing speaking, the blonde Wuloxing hung up the phone. What do you think? Is the Warring States report really true? After hanging up the phone, the blonde Wuloxing looked at the other 3 Wuloxing and said, call him. If he can call back, the Sengoku report is certainly false. If not. Having said this, the curly-beard Wuloxing stopped his words. The blonde Wuloxing nodded, picked up the receiver, and dialed the phone bug on the sword-wielding wuxing. At the same time, the 4-5-old stars in the office also very much hoped that the other side of the phone can be connected. However, to their disappointment, the phone rang for a long time but was not answered. Helpless, the blonde wuxing had no choice but to hang up the phone. It seems to be true. I didn't expect that guy to die either. The 5 old stars with curly hair slammed their fists on the desk and said gloomily, "Perhaps we should have taken the dangerous Drake pirates out of their minds from the very beginning." Not only the Drake pirates, but also Blue Star behind them should be dealt with. These things, let's talk about them later. The blonde wuxing shook his head. Now let's talk about the Navy's ransom. In this case, their Navy's strength is also indispensable to us. I think we should help them regain their freedom. I agree. The 5 old stars with long beards nodded. However, Kyuhai doesn't need us to pay. Those guys actually have the legal right to plunder that we allow, and they must have accumulated a lot of wealth, so they can still get this little money out. Reconsideration, the curly-beard wuxing said. However, when something like this happened, someone must come out and take responsibility. Several times in a row the Navy failed to capture members of the Drake pirates, failing to break them when they were least dangerous. These things, the warring states must take responsibility. I propose that Admiral Akainu Sakaski take over as admiral. The current situation requires a marshal with a more determined attitude to stand up. Reconsideration, reconsideration, reconsideration. Then, since we have discussed everything, then, I will call the warring states. As he said that, the blonde wuxing picked up the phone bug and dialed the phone number that Zanko gave him just now. Why haven't you connected for so long? Looking at the phone bug that rang for a long time, the blonde wuxing said suspiciously. Warring states, how come wuxing and the others haven't called back for so long? Cap asked suspiciously. After the warring states phone call with wuxing, he also made a special phone call with Zephyr at the Navy headquarters and explained some things, and after that, I have been waiting for wuxing to call back, but Zanko and others waited for a long time, but they still didn't get their call. Maybe it's because they can't get in. Warring states remembered what Ziyan said just now, let me fight again. After finishing speaking, warring states dialed wuxing's number again. Soon, the phone was connected by the blonde wuxing. This is the warring states period. May I ask the 4-5 old stars, has there been a result of the discussion? Warring states, what's going on with you? Why haven't you answered the phone for so long? The blonde 5 old star said. Perhaps, it is probably the particularity of the cell we are in. Page 315. That's it. The blonde wuxing nodded. Let's not talk about that. Let me tell you first, our decision. We are willing to pay part of the ransom for your navy, but the ransom for Kibuhai must be paid by themselves. But nothing but. The blonde wuxing interrupted Sengoku. There are many powerful pirates. If they can't pay the ransom, let them die at the hands of the Drake pirates. Afterwards, we can fully support the new pirates to become Kibukai. Also, Sengoku, you have to reflect on yourself. The suggestion given by our 5 old stars is that you resign yourself as Admiral of the Navy. Akainu Sakaski will be the new marshal. After finishing speaking, the blonde wuxing didn't give Zanko a chance to refute, and directly hung up the phone. Seeing the phone bug that was hung up, Sengoku was stunned for a moment, then looked at Jinping, who was not in a good mood. Very flat. Needless to say, Sengoku. Jinbi took the phone bug in Sengoku's hand. I'll just take care of my own affairs, but now you can't even keep your marshal status. After speaking, Jinbi called his own pirate team. Hey. Seeing Jinbi's expression, Sengoku let out a deep sigh. The naval soldiers in other cells also looked at warring states with complicated expressions. Think about it, Sengoku. Garp patted Sengoku on the shoulder. It's nothing to lose the position of Admiral of the Navy, Garp. After all, there must be someone responsible for these things. Sengoku shook his head. It's just that the 5 old stars didn't pay the ransom to Shikai Bukai, and the new naval admiral was appointed by Sakaski. I don't want to see it. Now the strength of the Navy has been severely hit. Peluslino left, and a large number of lieutenant generals and elite soldiers of the Navy died in this operation. Now, the Navy should consider keeping a low profile and actively. However, with Sakelski's character, it may be difficult to do so. In fact, I would rather have Kizan as the new admiral. This matter will be discussed after we go out. We can't talk about anything else until we get out of this place safely, Carp said. I just hope that the world government will be quicker. The news here must be known to the whole world soon. If we stay here, there will be a lot of chaos in the sea. I hope so, Warring States said. On the side of Warring States and Garp, Kuzan's face is also extremely tangled. Archeria, you are still here. Ziyan came back to the coast, intending to wait for the end of the battle between Lancelot and Hawkeye Mahawk. Here, the other companions have already left. Only Artoria and Empress Hancock, who doesn't know where to go, are still here. It's you, Ziyan. Artoria turned her head to look at Ziyan. Her expression was a bit complicated. Still, do you care about Lancelot's affairs? Ziyan walked to Archeria's side, took out a bench, and sat down holding her hand. Ziyan, What you don't understand is that Lancelot fell into madness because he hated me. Archeria held Ziyun's palm tightly, and said with a little pain, I am an unqualified king, a king who doesn't understand people's hearts, and I can't feel the expectations of my subordinates. Therefore, I will bring Britain to ruin. It's just that I didn't expect that I would let Mr. Lancelot fall into such madness. Ziyun patted the back of Artoria's hand. When you took over Britain, the kingdom's situation was not good. A strong enemy is coming, and the domestic food is in short supply. Under such circumstances, you can continue to bring victory to the country, and bring the kingdom the final glory as a holy king. In my opinion, you are a perfect king. Although I haven't said it, but among the many kings here, what I admire most is your kingly way. Leah, page 316. In this world, no one is perfect, and you are no exception. Leah, given the circumstances in Britain at the time, it was already very good that you could do that. In later generations, your brilliance, the glory of the Knights of the Round Table, will be recognized by many people. I don't think Lancelot hates you either. For him who has made mistakes, maybe he just wants to be punished by you, so he is so attached to you. Will it really be so? Artoria frowned and said, when the time comes, wouldn't it be good to ask Lancelot? Ziyun smiled. Although there is no way to restore his sanity all the time, I think it is still possible to use magic to restore him for a short time. Thank you, Ziyun. Archeria's brows stretched slightly. She leaned slightly, and leaned against Ziyun's body. This guy's strength has never weakened. Hawkeye, who brandished the black knife, showed a surprised expression. Hawkeye has been fighting Lancelot for hours now. However, Lancelot's strength and speed did not weaken, but became stronger and stronger as time went by. At this moment, Hawkeye's body has been left with large and small wounds, and even his top hat has already been chopped off by Lancelot's sword. At the same time, many sword marks were left on Lancelot's pitch-black armor. However, unlike Hawkeye, these scratches did not break through Lancelot's defense, and actually caused damage to Lancelot. On the one hand, Lancelot's armor already has good defensive power. On the other hand, when Lancelot was fighting, he deftly avoided Hawkeye's powerful sword moves, and only the less powerful ones attack. Lancelot chooses hard resistance. Ding. Watching Lancelot turn around very quickly after fending off his downward strike with an upward block, and kicked towards his chest with a sweeping leg, Hawkeye's eyes widened. I didn't expect that Hawkeye, who suddenly changed his movements, was kicked out, but just when Hawkeye adjusted his body and was about to stand up, Lancelot suddenly fell from the air and directly stepped on Hawkeye's body. The long sword in his hand, the indestructible lake light, also quickly pierced Hawkeye's forehead. Well, Lancelot, come here. Ziyun suddenly appeared next to Lancelot and grabbed the sword he was stabbing at. Hawkeye. Lancelot looked up at Ziyun, silently put away his sword, walked to the side and stuck their sword on the ice, like a sculpture. Hawkeye, this is our second meeting. Ziyun looked at Bbook and said. Bbook was silent for a while, then stood up with his black knife. Originally, I hoped to fight Miyamoto Musashi again this time, but I didn't expect to be defeated by another swordsman. Bbook shook his head. Although he is more like a warrior than a swordsman, I have to say that, although his sword skills are very simple, they are also very efficient, as if, like the swordsmanship honed on the battlefield. Generally, you are indeed right. Lancelot was originally a knight on the battlefield. But I didn't come here to talk to you about that. Ziyun stretched out his palm to Bbook. Although I have a good sense of you, but since I chose to follow the Navy to deal with us, then I invite you to live in our dungeon for a while. Now, give me your black knife first. My black knife. Bbook looked down at the knife in his hand, and after hesitating for a while, he handed it to Ziyun. According to the practice of your Drake pirates, I should be able to pay a certain price in exchange for my freedom. Of course, as long as you give me 10 billion berry and 1 devil fruit, I can let you go. Ziyun raised the black knife in his hand, and with a thought, he used the treasure. Knight is immortal with unarmed, obtained from Lancelot, and in an instant red lines began to appear on the black knife. Your black knife is quite good. After strengthening, it can increase a lot of strength. Same ability as Lancelot. After being slightly surprised, Bbook shook his head. Why, are you interested in my black knife? Indeed, even if it is a broken black knife, if you sell it, you can sell a lot price. Don't worry, it's just for you temporarily. After Ziyun threw the black knife into the golden air ripples that suddenly appeared behind him, he said calmly, as long as you pay the ransom, it will be returned to you. Bbook lowered his head and frowned. I don't have a devil fruit, but I do have 10. Page 317. If you insist on a devil fruit, I can grab it for you. Ziyun shook his head. Let's talk about it when the time comes. The Navy may be willing to pay the ransom for you. Now, let's take you to where you should go first. After finishing speaking, Ziyun used telekinetic power to directly set up Bbook and Lancelot, and flew towards the cell. You're coming in too, Hawkeye. Seeing Bbook brought in by Ziyun, Jinbei raised his head. As the same king as the Kibukai, Jinbei still cares about the Kibukai in this operation. Seeing that Jinbei was here, Bbook also nodded. How about it, warring states? How is your discussion with the world government going? After Ziyun sent Bbook, who had already taken the medicine prepared by Tsunade, to their cell, he looked at Sengoku. Will the world government pay your ransom? The world government has promised to pay the Navy's reward, and they will arrange someone to deal with this matter as soon as possible. It's just about Kyuhai. I will pay my ransom myself. Jinbe looked at Ziyun. It's just that our pirate group doesn't have devil fruits. Now, my partners are actively looking for devil fruits, and I believe that it won't take long to bring devil fruits. Also, 10 billion berry. My partners will also work hard to raise money. Then I hope you can recover your freedom soon, Jinbe. As he said that, Ziyun turned his head to look at Hawkeye. As for Bbook, you can also think of a way to see if there is anyone who is willing to help you. After speaking, Ziyun didn't stay any longer, and left this place with Lancelot. He still has to go to Artoria to deal with the matter between her and Lancelot. Otherwise, Ziyun couldn't stand the fight every time the two met. After all, when this guy Lancelot faced Artoria, he shot with all his strength. On the way to where Artoria is, Ziyun also engraved rune magic on Lancelot's body for calming, and Lancelot also temporarily recovered his body as Ziyun wanted. This made Ziyun even more grateful for being able to obtain Scathach's magic ability. The whole set of rune magic mastered by Scathach can be said to have an extremely wide range of functions. With Ziyun's current magic power, it can be said that he can do many things. Soon, Ziyun and Lancelot came behind Artoria. At this moment, she is holding the sword of her vowed victory, looking at the distant sea. Leah, I brought Lancelot over here, Ziyun said behind Artoria. Hearing Ziyun's words, Artoria turned around slowly, and after smiling at Ziyun, turned to look at Lancelot. Leave it to you first, I'll go to the side first, Ziyun said with a smile. Mr. Lancelot, why did you become like this? Looking at Lancelot, who revealed his very familiar face after removing the helmet, Artoria sighed and said, sure enough, it's because you hate me? It's not like that, my king. Lancelot knelt on one knee, with his head bowed deeply. I'm just angry at the mistakes I made before, not at you Wang. A sinner like me has no right to be angry with you. The reason why Britain will be destroyed is all my responsibility. So, my lord. Lancelot raised his head and looked at Artoria expectantly. My only wish is to be punished by you. Page 318. You are always so generous. No matter what mistakes I have made, you have forgiven me tolerantly. But, for me, I feel more like being punished by you. That's right. Artoria shook her head sadly. I'm sorry, Mr. Lancelot. The previous me has never been aware of your thoughts. Perhaps, it is precisely because of this that Britain will be destroyed. Mr. Lancelot, the destruction of Britain is not your fault. Since I am the king of the kingdom of Britain, I must take responsibility for its destruction. Forgive me for being such an immature king. No, it's not like that, my king. You will always be the best king in my heart and in our hearts, Lancelot said. Thank you, Lancelot. Artoria smiled. You and Ziyun said the same thing. Anyway, Britain is a thing of the past. For now, let's keep our minds on the present. Lancelot, didn't you say you want punishment? If so, then I will punish you now. Yes, my king, Lancelot said excitedly. Lancelot, my punishment for you is that you must assist our master wholeheartedly. Lancelot raised his head in a daze. My lord Lancelot, the past is past. If you want to die, then you don't have to. In this way, it is also a loss to the master who summoned you. Now, what we should do is to help our master, so I need you to swear as a knight, willing to give everything to protect our master. I hope you agree, Sir Lancelot. I see, King. Lancelot laughed. I will never make the same mistakes again. This time, I will definitely help you wholeheartedly and assist the master to achieve his goal. Very well, I am very happy to be able to fight together again, Sir Lancelot. Artoria said. It seems that you have talked. Ziyun walked over from not far away, holding a dark bracelet in his hand. I am also very happy that you can talk well. This is for you, Lancelot. Ziyun handed him the black bracelet in his hand. The runes on your body can't last forever. As a berserker, if you are a warrior, your sanity will disappear again. And if you wear this bracelet, as long as you are not in a fighting state, you can maintain your sanity. Thank you, Master. Lancelot took the bracelet. For me, this is a very much needed treasure. As a knight, I, Lancelot, promise that I will do my best to help you, Master. We will spend a long time together in the future, so don't be so polite. Ziyun smiled and said, speaking of which, I just looked through the treasures in Babylon's treasury for the purpose of trying, but I didn't expect such a treasure to exist. However, as I said, if you are in a battle, this bracelet will not be able to suppress your madness, so you must be careful not to attack Artoria just because of your madness. Sorry, Master, King, I will pay attention to this. Lancelot shook his head and said, even he himself felt very helpless about attacking Artoria after going mad. When he regained his senses, Lancelot was extremely remorseful when he thought about their situation of fighting Artoria before. However, don't worry too much. If there is such a thing, I will organize you, Ziyun said. Now, The battle is over. Everyone should go back and rest first. I'm going to deal with the matter of their Empress Hancock and the Revolutionary Army. Page 319. Really, that Hancock, I don't know where he went. Ziyan shook his head. In the enemy's territory, she really dares to run around. Archeria smiled. After seeing you, she didn't plan to talk to her. She seemed very angry. Maybe she should vent her temper somewhere on the island now. Okay, I'll go find her now. Besides, Ymir is already preparing food. You two go back and wait for me first, Ziyan said. After hearing Ziyan's words, Artoria couldn't help but shine. Ziyan, Lancelot, I'll take a step first, and you guys come back quickly. Wang is still the same. He is very passionate about food. Lancelot smiled and said, however, in the past, even in the face of things, Wang still seemed very lonely. It seems that Wang has really changed a lot here. As long as it's changed for the better, isn't it good? Ziyan said with a smile. Now, Archeria can relieve her responsibility for the British Kingdom and live a relatively relaxed life. I think it is much better than her previous life. It is indeed so. In the past, it was hard for me to see the king smile. Lancelot turned to look at Ziyan. These changes should be all because of you, master. Lancelot performed a knight salute to Ziyan. Thank you, my master, for allowing the king to have a different and beautiful life, and thank you for allowing me to have a chance to redeem my sins. Don't worry too much about atonement. Just live in this new world. There are many things in this world that are worthy of our exploration. Ziyan supported Lancelot and said, patting Lancelot on the shoulder. Ziyan continued, now, you should go back first. Speaking of which, when you were first summoned, because you fell into madness, you haven't properly greeted your other companions yet. You really should go and say hello. Lancelot nodded. Then master, I'll go back first. After speaking, Lancelot raised his feet and walked towards Gilgamesh's palace. Then, it's time to talk to Hancock and the Revolutionary Army next. Ziyan smiled, turned around and looked at Long and Ivankov who were walking towards him. Not far away, however, the Revolutionary Army doesn't seem to need me to look for it. What a beautiful victory, Your Excellency Ziyan. Coming in front of Ziyan, Long sighed and said, I never thought that in the face of the Navy and world government's combat power, you would be able to defeat them without any damage. And, you guys, not all the members have shot. Hey ha. Ivankov's big face suddenly appeared next to Ziyan. Dragon is right, especially the Spartacus boy. He is so cute and powerful. That life-sacrificing attack, yes, as he said, was love. Performance. This is simply the perfect way of our transvestites, which is also the love of transvestites. This guy's head is fine. Ziyan pointed to Ivankov and looked at the dragon and said, hey, he's back to his old habit. Long shook his head. I hope His Excellency Ziyan doesn't care about it. Ivankov is like this. When he sees interested men, he always hopes to bring them into the ranks of transvestites. Speaking of which, it's not just the Spartacus boys who are good. Ivankov clasped his hands on one side of his face, twisting his whole body, and that Gilgamesh boy is also quite good. He was able to defeat the 5 old stars by himself. All world government personnel. It's really amazing, especially to get the crimson light that seems to be able to destroy the world. Just thinking about it, it seems like the slaves have recruited the Gilgamesh boy into our team. Don't let Gilgamesh hear your words. Ziyan shook his head and said, otherwise, you might really be killed by him. Is it so scary? Let's forget it. Page 320. Thinking of Gilgamesh's fighting ability, Ivankov crossed his hands and shook his head. Ziyan, boy, please don't tell Gilgamesh about this. Well, stick out your face here, Ziyan said. Then what's the matter? Boom. As soon as Ivankov stretched his face over, Ziyan punched him in the face, and because of Ziyan's attack, Ivankov's eyeballs popped out, and he flew out quickly. Hey, Ziyan boy, why did you hit me? After standing still, Ivankov quickly ran back. You have such thoughts about my best friend. If you don't tell him about it, then I will help him beat you no matter what. Ziyan rubbed his fists. Don't worry, after that punch just now, I won't tell Gilgamesh about this. However, don't you have any such thoughts about me in the future? Otherwise, I'll beat you up. Hey, so that's the case. It looks like I misunderstood Ziyan boy. Ivankov yelled and said, boy Ziyan is really a gentle boy. Please, come and join our ranks of transvestites. I'll tell you quietly, be a shemal. Boom. Before Ivankov finished speaking, Ben-Yan punched him hard and fell to the ground. Hee, it looks like you guys, Ivankov, really need to be taught a lesson. Ziyan squeezed his fists and looked at Ivankov with a smile on his face. Don't worry, Ivankov, I have studied boxing very well. How to hit someone is very painful. I understand very clearly. Next, you can enjoy my massage. It's an honor. I don't often do things like this. Wait, boy Ziyan, calm down, calm down. Although Ziyan was smiling all over his face, Ivankov felt very bad. Long, think of a way and help me. Hearing Long's words, Long turned around directly and chose to ignore it. Why is it like this? Not waiting, Ivankov continued to say something. Ziyun directly mentioned Ivankov, and at the same time released his double world, and began to ruthlessly destroy Ivankov. Wood beats wood big. For the 5 minutes I have recorded, Ivankov has been there, bobbing in the air. Ziyun and the substitute stood on both sides of Ivankov, beating him non-stop. And Ziyun took special care of Ivankov's big face. 5 minutes later, Ivankov fell to the ground like a puddle of mud. Phew. It's comfortable now. Ziyun put away the stand-in, took a deep breath. Do you want to talk about it now? Let me be a ladyboy with you, Ivankov. With a bruised nose and a swollen face, Ivankov slowly raised his hand. Don't dare. Very well, it seems that you have finally got a long memory. Ziyun nodded. Next, you can treat yourself. Anyway, you are also a doctor, aren't you? So, Long, what else do you want? Ziyun turned around, looked at Long and said, Your Excellency Ziyun, as I said last time, the Revolutionary Army is looking for cooperation with Blue Star. Together we will overthrow the world government and build a better world. Long said eagerly. After overthrowing the world government, who'll rule the world? You Revolutionary Army? Ziyun said. Long shook his head. To rule the world, not only good policies are needed, but also strong power is necessary. Our Revolutionary Army doesn't have enough strength, but you, Blue Star, have. Page 321. So, as long as Blue Star can guarantee to make this world a better place, and there are no more people like Tan Longren, our Revolutionary Army is willing to assist. Blue Star. You revolutionaries seem to trust us. Ziyun smiled. However, Long, we are indeed not the enemy of your Revolutionary Army. What we are after is freedom. Of course, it is true that we cannot understand what the world government is doing. So, I do have the idea of bringing down the world government, and your Revolutionary Army is willing to come to our side to assist us. I am quite happy. How about this? The Chambord Islands, because they are relatively close to Mary Jaoa and their Navy headquarters, I have already decided to let my own people station here. And you can send people here for long-term exchanges and cooperation. However, I need to remind you that the current ruler of the Chambord Islands is Gilgamesh. His character, you must have seen it just now. Get along with him. I hope you find a more calm person to come. At least, don't let this Ivankov come. As he said that, Ziyun glanced at Ivankov who was lying on the ground trembling all over. If I talk to Gilgamesh, although he won't really kill Ivankov, but Gilgamesh's interesting thing is a lot of, at that time, he will definitely suffer a lot. By the way, I think the bears in your Revolutionary Army are calm. If one day, you don't need him to go undercover in the Navy, you can send him here then. That guy's abilities, presumably even Jill would be interested. You know the bears of the Revolutionary Army. Dragon's eyes widened. Don't underestimate our information. That guy is a matter of the Revolutionary Army. I already knew it. In addition, when that guy took advantage of Spartacus unfolding his treasure, he came to this island with his own ability and talked with you guys in secret. I felt it all. Yes, but that's all very well. Long laughed. With such intelligence capabilities, and with such powerful abilities, I feel more and more that my choice is not wrong. If you want to make a revolution in any country in the future, you can let us do it. But if we do it, the country's ruling power must be with us. You need to understand this. Ziyun said. Long nodded. I see. I have no objection to your rule. If that's the case, go ahead and get busy. I still want to find that Empress Hancock. In addition, I told the Navy that the bear's ransom is 10 billion berries plus a 1 devil fruit. If the Navy asks about Xung in the future, you can say that he paid me the ransom himself. Ziyun turned around. By the way, since you are willing to assist us, let me reveal one thing to you. The yellow ape in our Blue Star is not the one in the Navy. The yellow ape there. Yellow ape in the Navy was just dropped by us. What does it mean? Said dazedly. Literally, that the yellow ape in the Navy is imprisoned by us. And now, everyone in the world probably knows that General Huang Yuan in the Navy has betrayed the Navy and has fallen into the arms of Dot. Therefore, I plan to release their yellow ape in the original Navy recently. If the Navy encounters this yellow ape in the future, it will be very interesting. Come on, since there is such a thing. Long's eyes widened. But, how did you manage to hide it from the Navy? Even if the appearance can be concealed, but the ability is not the same. Page 322. The yellow apes on our side not only have the same appearance, but also have the same personality, and even the fruit ability is also the ability of the shiny fruit. So, when you see the yellow apes in the sea in the future, don't mistake them. After finishing speaking, Ziyun ignored the surprise of the dragon, and flew directly into their sky, flying towards the direction of Hancock that he sensed. How is it possible? There is such a thing. The dragon only felt that his view of the world had been impacted. In this world, the devil fruit is recognized as a kind of devil fruit with only one. But now Ziyun told him that there are 2 gleaming fruits, and there are 2 yellow apes. Long, is what Ziyun said true? At this time, Ivankov stood up. Anyway, such a thing is too exaggerated. Long was silent for a while, then looked in the direction where Ziyun left. Ivankov, since the appearance of the Drake pirates, It has always refreshed our evaluation of it. And the abilities that Ziyan and the others showed are indeed too unique. Whether it's their own abilities or the weapons they hold. Long shook his head. We still know too little about them. Perhaps things that seem impossible to us can happen to them. After speaking, the dragon turned around and walked towards the Golden Palace. Dragon, where are you going? Ivankov quickly caught up. Go and meet the yellow ape in Blue Star, the leader said without turning back. Since Ziyan is willing to tell us this point, there must be nothing wrong with us asking about the situation. Moreover, as Ziyan said, if you encounter a yellow ape on the sea in the future, if you make a mistake, it will be bad. Therefore, it is also what we should do to know more about him. While Long and Ivankov were looking for Peluslino, Ziyan also came to where Hancock was. At this moment, she was kicking hard at a huge alchemon mangrove. Damn it, that guy Ziyan is ignoring me. Saying that, Hancock kicked the tree trunk again. Also, why doesn't my ability work on this guy? Could it be that my beauty is really inferior to those women around him? Hancock touched his face and muttered to himself. Although before, Hancock said that he looked down on the women around Ziyan, but in her heart, she still recognized the beauty of some women around Ziyan. No, no. Hancock shook his head. My concubine is the most beautiful in the world. There must be something wrong just now, so my ability doesn't work on Ziyan. Wait, you must try it on him. Thinking of how Ziyan didn't care about him, Hancock even temporarily forgot his purpose of coming to Ziyan. Hancock lifted his white legs, as if kicking against a tree trunk, and took hold of her calves with one hand. Isn't it good for you to wreak havoc on our territory like this, Hancock? Ziyan's voice reached Hancock's ears. Ziyan, you bastard, when did you come? Hancock exclaimed. Just when you said something bad about me. Ziyan smiled, and pinched Hancock's snow-white calf. By the way, such a powerful calf, no wonder it can kick such a giant tree and shake it. If I don't come over sooner, I'm afraid I will really be kicked off by you. You bastard, let me go. Hancock struggled hard a few times, but he couldn't break free from Ziyan's palm. Well, what did you say, Hancock? Ziyan pretended not to hear what Hancock said, and asked with a puzzled expression. Hateful. Hancock frowned, jumped up with the other foot, and used his ability to kick Ziyan's head hard. Aromatic feet. Ziyan smiled, raised his other hand to grab the leg kicked by Hancock. Page 323. Immediately, Hancock, who was caught by both feet, lost his balance and fell to the ground. Hancock quickly put his hands on the ground to prevent his head from landing on the ground. What? Your panties are showing. Ziyan grabbed Hancock's two legs, and said with some embarrassment. Ziyan, let me go. Hearing Ziyan's words, Hancock blushed and said, as you wish. As Ziyan said, he let go of Hancock's feet, and at the same time, when Hancock's body was about to fall to the ground, he gently dragged her out with telekinesis. Feeling the touch under his body, Hancock couldn't help touching it. After looking at Ziyan unexpectedly, Hancock got up quickly, and at the same time stepped back slightly, away from Ziyan. Tell me, what is your purpose for coming here? Ziyan smiled. If it's you, you probably don't really plan to attack us with the navy. Hancock took a deep breath, stretched his hands forward again, and used his devil fruit ability. Sweet and sweet. The pink light quickly passed through Ziyan, who did not make any resistance. Still, it doesn't work. Hancock's eyes widened. Almost enough. Ziyan shook his head. If you attack me again, I will punish you a little bit. HMPH. Even if I attacked you, you wouldn't blame me. Hancock pointed his right hand at Ziyan, leaned back 90 degrees and said, okay, as long as you're happy. He smiled. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. My companions and I still have a banquet to hold. You also leave this island quickly, and if you don't really fight back, I won't take your ransom. You know, the other 7s caught by me have to pay me a full 10 billion Baileys and a 1 devil fruit to be able to regain their freedom, and many more. Seeing Ziyunkai, Hancock couldn't help stretching out his hand to hold him. Me. Hancock pursed his lips, and wanted to ask Ziyan to help her remove the Tanlongerin slave seal, but because he was afraid of being rejected, he was even more afraid of being exposed to others by Ziyan. So she was still unable to speak out. Ziyan shook his head. You need my help with something? Hearing Ziyan's words, Hancock nodded slightly. Actually, even if you don't tell me, I can roughly guess that what you want me to do for you is the slave seal of the Tanlong people, Ziyan said. Hancock raised his head quickly, and looked at Ziyan in surprise. I still know something about the cause and effect between the 3 sisters of the 9 snakes and the Tanlong people. Ziyan Hancock grabbed the back of his hand. If your goal is to remove that seal, I can help you for free. It would be better if slaves and the like don't exist in this world. Hearing Ziyan's words, Hancock couldn't help covering her mouth. Although she didn't know how Ziyan understood her, she was only excited and happy that Ziyan was willing to help her. Come on, let's get rid of it now. Hancock grabbed Ziyan's hand and ran. In order to prevent other accidents, Hancock wanted to remove the slave seal immediately. Hey, Hancock, where are you taking me? Ziyan asked. You can just follow me. Saying that, Hancock quickened his pace. People on the street only felt a gust of wind blowing by, but they couldn't see Hancock and Zhu Yun clearly. After Hancock held Zhu Yun's hand and ran at full speed for several minutes, Hancock finally stopped. Page 324. It's here. It's here. Bathhouse. Zhu Yun looked at the word soup written in front of him. The word Japanese-style bathhouse. Can't help but stunned. You don't want me to help you remove the seal here, do you? You can go directly to our palace to do this. No, I don't want to wait a second longer. Hancock shook his head, pulled Zhu Yun and walked forward. When the time comes, you regret it. What should I do? That. Actually, what I want to say is that our palace is closer than here. Zhu Yun silently raised his hand. Hancock was stunned for a moment, and his face began to turn red slowly. I don't care. Whatever choice I make is right. After finishing speaking, Hancock directly pushed open the door of the bathroom and came to the counter. I want to take a bath. You drive everyone out. Hearing Hancock's words, the proprietress of the bathhouse couldn't help being stunned, but soon she saw Zhu Yun beside Hancock. Lord Zhu Yun. The proprietress of the bathhouse hurried out of the counter and bowed deeply to Zhu Yun. I didn't expect you to come, so I'll make arrangements for the two of you. Lord Zhu Yun and your wife, please wait a moment. As the proprietress who chose to stay in Chambord Islands, she has accepted the rule of Zhu Yun. Rather, she now prefers Zhu Yun to rule the Chambord Islands. In the past few days, under the management of Zhu Yun and others, the people on the island have deeply felt the changes in the Chambord Islands. It is far better than when it was ruled by the Tanlong people. Although the proprietress of the bathhouse was very worried when she learned that people from the Navy and the world government had fought with Zhu Yun and others. But after knowing that the Navy and the world government have been driven away, their proprietress feels at ease and at the same time has more confidence in Zhu Yun's management. Wait, I'm not her wife. Hancock frowned and said, but her face turned red. It seems that Master Zhu Yun, your wife is still a little shy. The proprietress smiled. Please come with me, you two. We have a hot spring bathhouse here, which is very suitable for bathing and has a lot of space. Also, since no one is using it right now, I highly recommend you both to go there. And, after you go in, I won't let anyone else go in. Looking at the direction the proprietress pointed, Hancock didn't make any further arguments, and pulled Zhu Yun directly into it. I didn't expect there to be such a bathhouse in the Chambord Islands. After entering inside, Zhu Yun looked at the warm environment here and sighed. In the future, I can bring others with me here. It's not good for you to think about bringing other people with me. Hancock lowered the corners of his eyes, making a weak look. Okay, let's get down to business, Hancock. Zhu Yun waved his hand. You don't think you still want to use your devil fruit ability on me, do you? Even if you can successfully turn me into a stone, after that, who will you ask to remove your slave seal? What an incomprehensible man. Hancock stood up straight and regained his haughty appearance. Hancock walked to the edge of the hot spring and sat down, with his back to Zhu Yun. He slowly took off his shirt, and brushed his long black hair in front of him. A crimson scar appeared in front of Zhu Yun's eyes. It's ugly. Hancock bit his lip and said in pain. No, it's better to say that even with such scars, you are very beautiful. Zhu Yun walked into Hancock shaking his head, and sat down behind her, gently placed his right hand on the position of the slave mark on Hancock's back. However, when this seal is removed, you must be more beautiful, Hancock. Don't you think I'm ugly? I'm a slave of the celestial dragons. Hancock gritted his teeth and said. Page 325. The ugly ones are nothing but the draconians who stamped you slaves. Neither you nor anyone else is just a victim. And you, who can strive to become the emperor of a country from a slave of the Tanlong people, such a you are very dazzling and very beautiful. Zhu Yun smiled. What I'm talking about is not just your appearance. Hancock, are you ready? I'm about to start. Hancock nodded, his eyes filled with anticipation. Zhu Yun raised his right hand, and gently sketched on the back of Hancock's vertical screen. Following Zhu Yun's outline, mysterious runes slowly appeared on Hancock's back, and their lavender characters appeared on the Snow White. Hancock's Snow White. Her back makes her look even more beautiful. Well, soon, the runes began to work, and Hancock trembled slightly due to the sudden pain. However, the pain comes and goes quickly. In less than one serving, Hancock felt no pain. Is it eliminated? Hancock, covered in sweat, asked nervously and expectantly. Zhu Yun smiled and didn't answer. After taking a few steps back, he took out a 2-meter-long mirror from the treasure house and put it on the ground. Looking through the mirror, Hancock, who turned his back to Zhu Yun, soon found himself. There is no longer behind him the nightmare that has plagued him for many years. Well, Hancock covered his mouth, and tears began to roll down her eyes. His whole body was trembling with excitement. Finally gone. Hancock reached out and stroked his back, although there were tears, but the corners of his mouth couldn't stop rising. Looking at Hancock, who was weeping with joy, Zhu Yun silently took out a cheongsam similar to the cheongsam Hancock was wearing at this time from the treasure house, and put it on a small table beside her so that she could change out of the sweat-soaked cheongsam. Afterwards, he slowly exited the bathhouse, leaving the space to her alone for the time being. Master Zhu Yun, are you done so soon? The proprietress looked at Ziyun in surprise. Ziyun nodded. Next, let Hancock be alone for a while. Ziyun was stunned for a moment, thinking of what the proprietress said just now. He suddenly felt a little awkward. Ziyun turned his head to look at the proprietress, and found that she was looking at him with a sigh. It seemed like he wanted to say something, but he didn't dare to say it. "Mom, I think you may have misunderstood something." Ziyun walked to the counter of the proprietress, wanting to have a good time with her when it's her turn. "Master Ziyun, this is for you." The proprietress took out a small box from under the counter. "I originally planned to use this for my old man. You know, when a man reaches middle age, a man will always have a little bit of strength to try." Talking about her husband, the proprietress seemed to be complaining. But she also changed. She dared to talk in front of Ziyun. "So, I spent a lot of effort to buy this thing from my best friend. It is said that this thing is very effective for men. My girlfriend who has tried it on her husband highly recommends me." The proprietress didn't seem to see Ziyun's frown tightly, and continued, "Master Ziyun, after you use this thing of mine, it will definitely have a very effective effect. You can try it now. This thing works very quickly. Anyway, your wife is still in the bathhouse. You can try it, right?" Ziyun buried his head, and suddenly felt a great pain in his head. "First, I met Ivankov. The Shemal King wanted to turn himself into a Shemal, and now I met a middle-aged woman who said that she was not capable. If it weren't for the fact that the proprietress is just an ordinary person, and she is also a person under his rule, and she also has good intentions, Ziyun would have beaten her awake long ago." "Stop." Seeing what the proprietress was about to say, Ziyun quickly stopped her. "Miss Boss, I think it is necessary for me to explain clearly to you. First of all, that lady is not my wife, and secondly, I just went to the bathhouse to help her a little, and I didn't do the things you think." "I understand. You just took a bath together." Seeing that Ziyun, the ruler, seems to be quite talkative, the proprietress became more courageous. "You didn't do anything superfluous, and I was just thinking about everything else." Page 326. "However, Master Ziyun should accept this item. It is very effective." Ziyun patted his head, and walked quickly towards the door. He had given up on continuing to argue with the proprietress. "Master Ziyun, something for you." The proprietress held up the box and said. Hearing what the proprietress said, Ziyun left even faster. "In the future, I will definitely not bring a female companion to this place." Ziyun thought silently. "Ziyun, where are you?" After changing into the cheongsam left by Ziyun, Hancock rushed out of the hot spring in a hurry. After looking at his back in the mirror for a long time, Hancock slowly regained his composure. Just when she wanted to express her gratitude to Ziyun, she found that Ziyun was no longer in the hot spring room. After looking around the bathhouse, Hancock found the cheongsam on the small table, quickly changed into it, and then rushed out, looking for Ziyun's figure. "This. Mrs. Ziyun's wife, are you looking for Mrs. Ziyun?" The proprietress raised her head from the counter. "Master Ziyun has been away for a while." "I am not a wife." Hancock originally wanted to deny the proprietress' statement that she was Ziyun's wife, but at the end of the talk, his voice became getting smaller and smaller. Even she herself didn't understand why. What did you say?" The proprietress pricked up her ears. Unable to understand, Hancock shook his head, rushed out of the bathroom door, and searched for Ziyun. "Please help me bring this box to Lord Ziyun." The proprietress chased out the gate, holding up the box and yelling, but there was no sign of Hancock outside the gate. "Have you gone back, Ziyun?" After Hancock searched around the Chambord Islands, he arrived outside the Golden Palace. Boo boo boo. Boo boo boo. Just when Hancock was about to enter the palace to look for Ziyun, the phone bug she was carrying rang. Hancock frowned, and pulled out the phone bug from his chest. "Hey, hello, sister, it's me." In the phone bug, Boya Marigold's voice came out. "We all saw through the news that both the Navy and the world government were defeated by the Drake pirates. Many people died, and even 7 Wuhai died. The Kibukai who are not dead are all captured. Sister, are you okay?" "Marigold, call me." A loud voice came from the opposite side of the phone bug in Hancock's hand. "It's me, Snake Princess. I'm Grandma's Snake Girl. Are you being captured by Ziyun now?" "Listen to me, don't have conflicts with Ziyun. We will find a way to help you. We are now starting from the islands we separated before, and in less than 2 days we will be able to reach the Chambord Islands." "Listen, Snake Princess, that Ziyun likes to capture others first, and then let others use their ransom in exchange for the person they captured. When you decided to go to the Navy headquarters, I quietly took out 6 million berries from their country's treasury, and I believe that I will be able to redeem you." "Why, mother-in-law, you actually took so much money secretly?" Marigold's eyes widened. "Yes, mother-in-law, our country is not very rich. If you spend so many berries at once, the sisters on the island will starve." Owner Boy Sanderson, with green hair, said. "You two ignorant fellows." The mother-in-law jumped up, pointed at the two of them and said, "As long as Snake Princess can come back safely, what is the cost of 6 million berry? If something happens, it will be a huge loss to our country." Amazon Lily Besides, you don't want your relatives either. Hancock took a deep breath. Grandma, you bastard, with my consent, you can take the things in the treasury. When I go back, I will definitely drive Daughter Island. What time is it now? Don't be so arrogant. Page 327. The mother-in-law said, listen to me, these 2 days, you just stay here honestly, and you will be the soon. Even if you're here, there's nothing you can do. The ransom that Ziyun offered Chi Wu Hai was 10 billion berry per person plus a 1 devil fruit. Hancock said lightly. What? Opposite the phone bug. Why the mother-in-law 3 people 3 grew her mouth. This is how to do our. The mother-in-law walked back and forth anxiously. Well, you don't have to worry about my personal safety. What I want to ask you now is, are there other people around the 3 of you? Hancock said. We are on the pirate ship, in Marigold's room. There are only 3 of us here. If you have anything to say, you can speak directly. Snake Princess. Why did my mother-in-law say? Hearing Granny Zed's words, Hancock calmed down slightly, and said to the phone bug, Marigold, Sandersonia. The imprint behind me has been erased by Ziyun. He really owns the eraser. Their ability to get rid of that ... mark. Real. Marigold and Sandersonia said loudly. Yes, so, you 2 hurry up to the Chambord Islands. I ask Ziyun to help you remove that ... mark. Rest assured, there is no danger here. Ziyun did not do anything to me, nor did he capture me. I'm safe here. Hancock said. Okay, sister, we will go to the Chambord Islands at full speed immediately, said the 2 sisters. Then, I'll be here waiting for you now, Hancock said with a smile. After that, he took the initiative to hang up the phone. That's great, Marigold, Sandersonia said happily. Yes, Sister Sandersonia. Marigold smiled happily. Tears of excitement flashed in her eyes. No, why didn't Ziyun catch Snake Princess? Looking at the excited 2 sisters, the mother-in-law fell into deep thought alone. Could it be that ... Ziyun fell in love with Shiji? Thinking of this, thinking of the rumors about Ziyun, Grandma's strengthened her mind. This is how to do our. The mother-in-law started pacing back and forth again. If that's the case, then will Ziyun let Shiji go? She is the most beautiful woman in the world. That guy will definitely keep Shiji by force. The more Granny Yi thought about it, the more worried she became. But even if Ziyun really fell in love with the Empress, Granny Yi must go to the Chambord Islands. No matter how much you pay, 9 snakes must return Snake Princess. Granny Yi looked out of the boat with firm eyes. Chambord Islands. After Hancock hung up the phone, Hancock sorted out the cheongsam on his body, and walked towards the Golden Palace. Stop, Empress Hancock. Outside the gate, Lu Chi, who was on guard, stopped her. Hancock looked at Lu Chi, frowned and said, I want to see Ziyun, you go and inform him. Lu Chi shook his head. Master Ziyun and other adults are having a banquet, and Lord Gilgamesh has already greeted them, so I don't want anyone to disturb them at this time. So, please leave. No. Hancock looked at Lu Chi proudly. I have to meet Ziyun today. Get out of the way. Do you want to do it? Lu Chi's body tensed slightly. I hope you can find out what this place is. Although Master Ziyun didn't arrest you, if you dare to interrupt the banquet of the adults, I think they will be very upset. Page 328. Hearing Lu Chi's words, Hancock frowned tightly. After looking up at the palace for a while, he turned and walked towards the distance. Afterwards, I will come to Ziyun again, Hancock said as he walked. Although I really want to see Ziyun now, and let him promise to help me erase the marks on my 2 younger sisters, but in order not to make Ziyun hate me. For himself, Hancock still decided to come to Ziyun after the banquet was over. After all, my 2 sisters will have to wait for a while before they can reach the Chambord Islands. The banquet in the palace was very lively as usual. This time, because the kitchen in the palace was very large, Minamoto Reimitsu couldn't bear to cook for Ziyun, so he went into their kitchen with Miyashiro and prepared a lot of Ziyun's favorite food. The dishes. I didn't expect you to be so good at cooking, Raiko. Seeing Minamoto Reimiko's dishes that she personally made on the table, Ziyun sighed and said, just by smelling it, I've already whetted my appetite. Yes, that's great. Minamoto Larimitsu put a piece of sashimi in front of Ziyun with a smile on his face. Come on, honey, try it. Ziyun smiled, and called out the sashimi. It's really delicious, Raikou. It's no worse than Emiyo's. Ah, I'm so happy. Minamoto Reimitsu narrowed his eyes with a smile. Actually, I am very confident in Japanese cuisine, but it seems my dear prefers Chinese cuisine. So, recently, I have learned Chinese cuisine from Emiyo. Come, honey, try my Chinese food. As he said that, Minamoto Reimitsu picked up a piece of double-cooked pork made of sea king meat and stretched it out to Ziyun's mouth. Well, the familiar taste is even more delicious than the twice-cooked pork I have eaten before. Thank you, Raiko. After swallowing the sliced meat, Ziyun said with a smile. Great. Come on, and this, yes, and this. Hearing that Ziyun was satisfied with his cooking, Minamoto Reimitsu began to put her own local vegetables in Ziyun's bowl. Ha 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 ha, isn't that good too, my best friend? Holding a wine glass, Gilgamesh said with a smile. Since Minamoto Reimitsu is so good at cooking, why don't you let Shiro and Mia stay in the Chambord Islands, as I also need a chef? Yes, the kitchen on the ship will be handed over to me in the future, so that I can prepare things for my dear anytime, anywhere, Yuan Liguang said happily. Looking at this, even if I don't give up the kitchen on the Golden Deer, it won't work. I don't expect to be kicked out by Miss Minamoto Liguang, Gong said with a smile. Actually, besides letting Jill stay on this island to guard this time, I really want to keep a few more companions here. After all, the area of the Chambord Islands is quite large. There are no personal guards here, so it would be good to have a few more companions here to share some of Jill's affairs. In this case, the old man will stay here. Li Shuwen took a sip and said, the environment of this island is good. It is quite suitable for old people like me to provide for the elderly. With Master Li here, I can feel much more at ease. Ziyun smiled. Ping. At that time, Jill was too arrogant, and I hope that Master Li can help more. Hey, Ziyun, it's not good to say that about your best friend, Gilgamesh said, slightly dissatisfied. Haha, don't mind, Jill. Ziyun raised his wine glass and said, by the way, Tesla, you can stay here too. Ziyun turned to look at Tesla. For you, concentrating on research here is much more valuable than sailing with us on the sea. Page 329. I am very much looking forward to your scientific research products. Leave it on me, Master. I won't let you down. It won't be long before this island will be completely transformed by my Tesla. Because I am a genius among geniuses, Tesla said. As a scientist who created an era, I have great confidence in you, Ziyun said with a smile. If you develop any new gadgets, please remember to let me know at any time. When the time comes, I will come over and watch directly by shifting positions. Of course, everyone who stays in the Chambord Islands can also come to our side at any time. The banquet lasted for a long time, and after deciding to stay in the Chambord Islands, it was completely time for Drake and Tsunade to drink together. During this period, Shiro Emiya and Reimitsu Minamoto returned to the kitchen several times to re-prepare the dishes. After sending the drunk Drake and Tsunade to their respective rooms, Ziyun went to their cubicle to put the food prepared by Emiya for Hai and others into his own space, and then came to the dungeon. It's time to eat, everyone. Ziyun smiled, took out the food from the treasure house, and piled it up in front of everyone. Seeing the food, Gup, who had been hungry for a long time, rushed over immediately, picked up a big piece of meat and started to bite. Well, although you are treated as a slave, I have to say that no matter how many times you eat the food here, it is still so delicious. Cap chewed and said, hey, Gup, how can you accept the enemy's food so casually? Warring States roared. Okay, Warring States, it's just a meal. Even if it is for better recovery in the future, we should eat it. With that said, Gup took another bite of the meat. Hey, why didn't the Warring States know this truth? But when they thought that it was a charity given by the enemy, the psychology of the Warring States felt very helpless. After turning his head to take a look at the injuries, Warring States finally let everyone in their navy go to eat. Ziyun, I hope you agree with me about one thing. Zango looked up at Ziyun. I want to see Peluslino. It's about this time. Do you still need to see Peluslino? Ziyun looked at Zango. Could it be that you still plan to let him return to your navy now? I just wanted to ask him why. Warring States said with a serious face. Oh, why are there so many reasons? Ziyun shook his head. However, I will tell Peluslino. As for whether he is willing to come to see you, it depends on his own wishes. Ziyun, can you tell me where the Empress Hancock and the Tyrant Bear are? Why didn't I see them in the dungeon? Kizin stood up and said, Bear, that guy has already paid enough ransom. Ziyun smiled. Speaking of which, you should learn from him. If the ransom can be paid in time, I don't have to lock you up. As for Hancock, as a woman, of course he can't be locked up with you. Lord Ziyun, please excuse me. A voice came from outside the dungeon. It's Cuckoo. What's the matter? What's the matter? Ziyun turned his head and looked at Cuckoo, who was much stronger than before. It's like this. A few Murlocs came outside the palace. They said they came to pay the ransom for Jinbi. Cuckoo said, oh. It's pretty fast. Ziyun looked at Jinping. That's right. The Fishman Island is quite close. If you haven't been here for a long time, it would be strange. Ziyun raised his hand, and a rune flashed at the door of the cell. And with the appearance of the rune, the door opened automatically. Page 330. Come on, Jinbi. Your partner is here to pick you up. The side nodded, put down the food in his hand, and stood up. Then, everyone, I'll go first. After finishing speaking, Jinbi walked out of the cell and stood beside Ziyun. Ziyun looked at the eagle-eyed Mihuk who was eating food without saying a word in their prison cell. Mihuk, you are interested in helping me guide my subordinates' sword skills. Hearing Ziyun's words, Mihuk raised his head. After guiding, can you cancel the devil fruit? Certainly. Ziyun nodded, and looked at Cuckoo. Speaking of which, you are still a dual swordsman. How about it? Do you want to practice with Hawkeye for a while? Can you? Cuckoo was slightly excited. What do you think, Mihuk? This guy can trouble you for a while. Ziyun said. Mihuk nodded. walked out of the cell silently, and stood beside Ziyandi. It seems that this matter is settled. Ziyan took out Hawkeye's black knife from the treasure house and handed it to him. Then let's go. With that said, Ziyan left the cell with a few people. Leah, why don't you rest so late? In the aisle, Ziyan saw Arturia, who was walking towards the door. It's a cloud. Arturia smiled. The moonlight is beautiful today. Can you go and see it with me? Sure. Ziyan smiled and nodded. Cuckoo. Hawkeye's room will be arranged by you. Yes, Lord Ziyan, Cuckoo said. After seeing Cuckoo nodding, Ziyan walked out of the palace alone with Arturia and Jinbi. Outside, two Murlocs are waiting anxiously with two treasure chests. Boss Jinbi. Seeing Jinbi appear, the two Murlocs cried out excitedly. Sorry for bothering everyone. Jinbi walked into the two Murlocs and said apologetically, there is nothing. This is what everyone is willing to do. One of the Murlocs shook his head and said, anyway, Boss Jinpei, it's good that you're fine. However, the reason why we can raise Bailey and Devil Fruit so quickly is thanks to King Neptune and Princess Ottoheim. They also said that when you go back, they want to see you, brother. I see. I'm going to trouble the two of them this time. Jinbi shook his head. I will pay a special visit to thank you when I get back, but let's leave here now. Saying that, Jinbi turned his head to look at Ziyan. Then, Black-haired Admiral, Your Excellency, we will leave first. Ziyan nodded, and handed Jinping a small bottle. It contains the antidote to remove their poison on your body. After taking it, you will recover your strength in about an hour. Also, Jinbi, we might meet again soon. Well, sir, what do you mean? Jinbi asked suspiciously, and at the same time, he was faintly on guard. I've seen the scenery of Mermaid Island a long time ago. Ziyan looked towards the sky, and I am also very yearning for the beautiful mermaid in fairy tales. The mermaid in the fairy tale, if you say that, I'm also quite interested. Archery answered. Page 331. When the time comes, let's go see the mermaid together, Leah, Ziyan said slightly excitedly. Arturia raised the corners of her mouth slightly and nodded. Then, Jinbi, see you soon. After I deal with the matter here, I will visit Mermaid Island. Ziyan turned to look at Jinping and said. Hearing Ziyan's talk, Jinbi frowned tightly. For Jinping, who had conflicts with Ziyan and his party, he was extremely unwilling that Ziyan would come to the Mermaid Kingdom. After all, if Ziyan and his group really want to do something to the Mermaid Kingdom, with the strength of the Mermaid Kingdom, there is absolutely no way to resist Blue Star. Jinbi was extremely worried about Ziyan's plan to go to the Merman Island. From there, Chambord Islands to the Merman Island, it didn't even take a day. So, if Ziyan and his party are going to the Murloc Kingdom, they don't have much time to prepare for the Murloc Island. Your Excellency, may I ask, what is your purpose for coming to Fishman Island? Jinping said solemnly. You seem worried, Jinbi. Ziyan looked at Jinping calmly. If it's what I said just now, it's just to see the customs of Murloc Island. You don't have to think about it. Jinping listened to Ziyan's words, but he didn't feel relieved. After sighing, Jinbi turned around and walked towards the shore with the two Murlocs. Come on, let's go shopping, Leah. After seeing Jinping and others leave, Ziyan took Archeria's hand and walked towards the sea. Boss Jinbi, do we really want to allow them to go to Murloc Island? After walking away, a Murloc looked at Jinbi worriedly and said, even if they want to go to Fishman Island, we can't help it. Jinbi shook his head. What we have to do now is to return to Murloc Island as soon as possible and tell King Neptune and Princess Ottoheim about this. Boss Jinbi, tell me, will the king notify the Whitebeard pirates? Another Murloc said, the strength of the Drake pirates is really too strong. They have defeated the coalition forces of the Navy and the world government several times in a row. From this point of view, the only one who can compete with them is probably the world's strongest man. The Whitebeard pirates led by Whitebeard can compete with them. Whether to seek help from the Whitebeard pirates or not, it is up to the king and Princess Ottoheim to decide. Jinbi shook his head. Don't worry too much, with the king and Princess Ottoheim here, we will be able to get through this safely. After hearing Jinbi's words, the two Murlocs stopped talking, and together with Jinbi, they quickened their pace and walked towards the ship of the Sun Pirates that was docked on their shore. Leah, speaking of it, this is the first time we've gone for a walk alone like this. Holding Leah's hand, Ziyan said with a smile. Yes, Arturia smiled. There are always many companions by Yun's side, and it's hard for me to get close to you alone. Arturia stopped slowly, looked up at the bright moon in the sky. It's so quiet, Yun, such a quiet night, far away from the noise. Doesn't it look extraordinarily beautiful? Ziyan looked at Archeria, who was illuminated by the moonlight. The night is indeed beautiful, but Leah, you are even more beautiful. Yun, don't say that. Arturia shook her head. How can a woman like me who lacks girly charm be beautiful? I, who has been wielding a long sword all year round, probably seem very rude in normal times. If you talk about Yun, you must like women with a soft figure like Tornado more. To a muscular woman like me, there is no such thing. Ziyan interrupted Arturia. Different from Tornado, Archeria also has a different beauty. Majesty itself is a kind of beauty. I'm like this, I can also use beauty. Archeria said. Of course, Leah, You need to be more confident. At me. Page 332. Ya's usually very handsome, Ziyun said with a smile. Handsome isn't what describes a man? Arturia tilted her head. Sure enough, I still lack femininity. Ziyun smiled, pulled Arturia to a bench and sat down. Women are handsome, but they have a different kind of beauty. For me, you like that are very attractive. Is that so? Arturia sat on the bench, looked down at her legs. Her face began to turn slightly red. That, Yun, do you want a knee pillow? Arturia touched her thigh and looked at Ziyun. Although it may not be as soft as Minamoto Reimiko, it should be okay. Ziyun smiled, turned around and slowly rested his head on Arturia's legs. Looking up at Arturia's face, Ziyun raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Yun, tell me, what do the Knights of the Round Table think of me? Will it be like Sir Lancelot? Or, in fact, there are still people who hate me? Arturia touched Ziyun's face and said slowly, I think, as Lancelot said, you must be the best king in their hearts. Although there may have been some unpleasantness in the past, deep down in their hearts, they must still recognize you very much. Ziyun said, it would be great if we could summon the Knights of the Round Table in the future. Then, Leah, you can ask them yourself. Yun, do you want to summon the Knights of the Round Table? Arturia asked in surprise. Don't you like Leah? No, it's better to say that I'm looking forward to meeting them again. Arturia shook her head. If I can make up for the regrets of the past, it will be great for me and for them. However, can you really summon the Knights of the Round Table? Arturia was a little worried. Yun, you shouldn't be able to designate the Knights of the Round Table. Although you cannot specify to summon the Knights of the Round Table, you can specify to summon Knights. Although the range is still a bit large, at least the probability of summoning the Knights of the Round Table is greater, isn't it? Well, let's call now. Ziyun smiled, and took out the thunderous fruit that he had kept earlier from the treasury. Using this, I can perform a summon once. Yun, isn't this the thunderous fruit? Didn't you plan to keep it before? Arturia said. Speaking of summoning the Knights of the Round Table, I can't wait. Ziyun stood up and sat next to Arturia. Also, if I exchange your one thunder fruit for a Knight of the Round Table to come to help, no matter how you ask, I feel that I have made a profit. Arturia pursed her lips, and lightly rested her head on Ziyun's shoulder. Thank you, Cloud. I know that you took out this thunderous fruit for me. We're partners, aren't we? Leah, if it can make you happy, what is this one devil fruit? Ziyun said with a smile. However, Leah, that Mordred is also a Knight of the Round Table, if she is summoned. Hearing Ziyun's words, Arturia's expression became complicated. Don't worry, Leah, if it's really her, let's talk about it then. I think that if you have a good chat, you can still get along well. Ziyun touched Arturia's frowning brows with his hand. If she really wants to disrespect you, when the time comes, I will stop her. Mordred is a very irritable person. Can he really stop her peacefully? Arturia said worriedly. What if I use her status as Queen Mother to stop her? Ziyun said. Page 333. Queen Mother. Arturia looked at Ziyun suspiciously. You are her father and king. If I marry you, I will be her mother and queen. Yun, what do you mean? Arturia's face instantly turned red. Ziyun smiled, and gently took Arturia into his arms. System, use this thunderous fruit to help me summon my companions from the night. Profession. Ziyun, holding Arturia, said to the system in his heart. The devil fruit has been deducted, and the summoning begins now. The mechanical voice of the system sounded in Ziyun's mind. Soon, a rotating summoning circle appeared in front of Ziyun and Arturia. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the King's Sword of Brilliant Radiance. Ziyun, swordsman, Mordred. By the way, is the father here? The light of the summoning array dissipated, and a swordsman wearing armor and covering his entire face appeared in front of Ziyun and Arturia. Ziyun, Arturia, Mordred, King Arthur. After the three of them were silent for a while, Mordred was the first to make a sound, and raised the brilliant king's sword in his hand, and slashed at Arturia. Ziyun slightly pressed Arturia, who was about to get up, and stood in front of her, his fist covered with magic power slammed towards the sword that Mordred looked at. Boom! You bastard! Are you the master who summoned me? Mordred, who was repelled by Ziyun's fist, looked at Ziyun. It's quite impressive to be able to catch my sword. However, I advise you not to block me, or I will attack you before. That's not right, Mordred. Ziyun shook his head. I promised Leah that if I summon you, I will help her stop you. I don't want to break my promise. Why? Because you are also King Arthur's master. Mordred raised his sword and pointed at Ziyun. Don't forget, I am also your servant. Or, do you think that King Arthur is stronger than me, so you don't like my strength? Because I'm your mother, is that enough reason? Ziyun said with a smile. Are you kidding me? My queen mother is Morgan. What are you waiting for? Mordred touched his helmet, staring at Ziyun and Arturia with wide eyes. Thinking of the way Ziyun and Arturia were cuddling each other on the bench just now, Mordred couldn't help having a bad premonition. Ziyun smiled, took Arturia's palm, and hugged her gently, looking at Mordred quietly. No, you and your father. Seeing Arturia, whose face was flushed but did not push Ziyun away, Mordred's eyes widened. As you can see, Leah's matter, so, If you want to attack her, I will naturally take care of it, Ziyan said with a smile. Besides, as your elder, I should teach you how to respect your father. Isn't that what I should do? By the way, if possible, I hope you will call me father in the future. After all, he's a man, you bastard, who wants to call you father and king. Mordred waved the long sword in his hand angrily, and the strong wind directly blew up their grass under her feet. Hey, King Arthur, talk. It's not true. Hearing Mordred's words, King Arthur didn't reply, but leaned slightly on Ziyan's body, and at the same time, her face became even more flushed. I should have appeared when called. What's the problem? Otherwise, how could we see such a scene? Mordred shook his head vigorously. Hey, master. Did you miss some steps when you summoned? Otherwise I would have hallucinations. Page 334. Hearing Mordred's words, Ziyan smiled, let go of Artoria temporarily, and walked in front of Mordred. Mordred looked up. What do you want? Ziyan raised the corners of his mouth, raised his hands slightly, and when Mordred didn't react, he pinched her cheek and pulled it slightly forcefully. Mordred's face was also stretched and shortened constantly in Ziyan's hands. You bastard, what are you doing? Mordred slapped Ziyan's hands off forcefully. Don't think that you are my master so you can mess around. I will really cut you. How is it, Mordred? Do you feel any pain? Ziyan looked at Mordred amusedly. It's almost time to wake up. It's also a virtue that a knight should have to recognize the reality. Mordred looked at Ziyan, then at Artoria, and then fell into a few minutes of silence. I don't admit it. How could the father and king become a partner with you? Well, indeed, we should ask for your permission. After all, you are Leah's child. Ziyan nodded. Who asked you to ask for my permission? No, you must ask for my permission. Not right. Mordred scratched his hair vigorously. Anyway, I don't allow you to be with a royal father. Seeing Mordred's excited look, Ziyan approached Artoria, and whispered in her ear, Leah, Mordred still cares about you. Look at her fierce opposition. You really become a partner or something? Artoria blushed and said softly. I really hope that's the case. Ziyan took Artoria's hand and said, also, Leah, let's have a good chat with Mordred later. In my opinion, Mordred just expected your approval too much. Will do wrong. Talk to each other more, and you will be able to get along well. Besides, it's what you expect to be able to meet and get along with the former knights of their round table again. After hearing Ziyan's words, Artoria looked up at Mordred. Well, I'll listen to you. You too. Don't whisper behind my back, Mordred yelled, although when he first saw Artoria, he directly launched an attack, but after seeing the master and father being so close, Mordred felt that it was difficult to strike. However, he was still very angry, but this anger has already transferred from Artoria to Ziyan. Adults talk, children don't interrupt, Ziyan said with a smile. Seeing Mordred's appearance, Ziyan couldn't help but want to tease her more. You bastard, I won't recognize you anyway, even if you are my master. Mordred swung his sword violently, and the scarlet thunder flashed on the sword. Unless you can defeat me, I will not let you be with my father. Oh. Beat you? Ziyan smiled. Isn't this quite simple? It seems that Mordred still agrees with us. Are you guys looking down on me? Hearing Ziyan's words, Mordred laughed grimly. If you underestimate my words, I will make you suffer. Hee. I hope your self-confidence can be maintained. Ziyan shrugged. However, it's inconvenient to fight here late at night. After all, it's your own territory. It's not good to disturb others' sleep. So, let's change the venue. After speaking, Ziyan lowered his head and began to sing silently. You guys are whispering something, aren't you going to fight? After waiting for a while, he found that Ziyan had no intention of attacking him, but kept muttering something in a low voice, and Mordred became impatient. Since you don't attack, then I will attack. Don't blame me if you're hurt. After speaking, Mordred rushed towards Ziyan, and the long sword in his hand stabbed at Ziyan's arm. Although he intends to teach Ziyan a lesson, Mordred has no real intention of seriously injuring Ziyan. Therefore, when attacking, he also chooses some insignificant parts to attack. Unlimited sword system. Page 335. At the same time that Mordred's sword was about to stab Ziyan's singing also ended. With Ziyan as the center, violent fluctuations of magic power rushed to the surroundings, and Mordred was also thrown away if he didn't pay attention. It's quite a set, this magic power. What is it? Mordred stood up slowly, and just about to say something, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Hey, this ability, shouldn't it be a treasure? Is this where your confidence comes from? Mordred looked at Ziyan, the corners of his mouth raised violently. Not bad. It looks like we can have a good time this time. It's just a different scene, and I don't intend to use the sword in this enchantment to attack you. While thinking about Mordred, Ziyan took out the sword of oath of victory that he got when he summoned Artoria. Since I want to fight you as an elder, I naturally have to bring out some elder's stuff. Sword of promised victory. Did King Arthur give you this sword too? Yes, let me see if you are worthy of this sword. After finishing speaking, Mordred leapt into the air and slashed at Ziyan fiercely with both swords in his hands. Ziyan smiled, imitating Artoria's movement, raised the sword of Oath of Victory with both hands, and easily blocked Mordred's attack. And, yes, that's trying this. Mordred retreated slightly, red lightning flashed from the sword, and then accelerated his speed to attack Ziyan. Ding, ding, ding. In an instant, the sound of sword strikes came from the place where Ziyan and Mordred collided. What's the matter? What's the matter? Is your skill only at this level? This kind of swordsmanship is far worse than that of the father. Mordred pushed away Ziyan's sword, turned around, and kicked Ziyan's abdomen vigorously. Ziyan quickly used both hands to block himself with his sword. Boom! Mordred's foot kicked the sword of Oath's sword, and because of Mordred's strength, Ziyan started to move backwards. Mordred withdrew his feet, threw his sword at the retreating Ziyan, and at the same time rushed towards Ziyan quickly. Facing the flying long sword, Ziyan stood still with both feet, and swung down, smashing Mordred's sword back. Mordred, who was running, jumped, and while catching his sword, he hit Ziyan's head with a knee bump. However, Ziyan, who had predicted it long ago, overcame it. What's wrong, Master? You've been passively defending since just now. If that's the case, you can't beat me. Mordred put the sword on his shoulder. However, I can understand you. After all, you are facing me, Mordred. Even if you run away, I will not laugh at you. Hee. Even though you said that, from the very beginning to now, haven't you hit me with an attack? Ziyan said with a smile. However, you really should show some real skills. Ziyan changed from holding the sword with both hands to holding the sword with one hand, and at the same time, he performed the starting posture of Bbook with his free right hand. Although I haven't used it with a sword, it should still work. Ziyan smiled. Then, next, you have to be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, the ground under Ziyan's feet collapsed instantly, and his body quickly approached Mordred, who was not far away, and he was in front of her in a blink of an eye. Looking at the surprised Mordred, Ziyan raised his mouth slightly, lowered his body, and bumped into her with an iron lean on. Before he could react in time, Mordred was knocked flying by Ziyan, and at the same time, the sword of vowed victory in Ziyan's hand pointed at Mordred in the air. After a brief period of brewing, the magic power on the sword turned into a strong wind and swept towards Mordred, and Ziyan also rushed towards Mordred following the wind and waves. Seeing the incoming hurricane, Mordred shot out a large amount of crimson lightning with the long sword in his hand, colliding with the hurricane. Soon, the two offset each other and dissipated into the air. However, before Mordred had time to breathe a sigh of relief, Ziyan, who followed their hurricane, appeared in front of Mordred's eyes. Facing Ziyan's sworn victory sword, Mordred only had time to put the sword on top of his head before Ziyan slammed it to the ground. Ziyan followed closely behind, imitating Mordred's action just now, and vigorously threw their sword of vowed victory in his hand towards the position where Mordred was. And after Mordred dodged, Ziyan also landed on the ground, when even a fist smashed on Mordred's armor. You guy, are you a swordsman or a boxer? Mordred took a few steps back and looked at Ziyan. The sword skills are messed up, but their boxing skills are still interesting. You guy, it's not like you didn't get in touch with swordsmanship after you got your father's sword. Page 336. But no matter what, my fighting power is quite good. I should be able to let you recognize it, Mordred. Ziyan pulled out the sword stuck in the ground and said, Hey, let's talk about it after you take my trick. Mordred stood in front of him holding swords in both hands. If you can continue, I will recognize your strength. However, in order not to get hurt, I still suggest you give up. After all, you are my master, and I don't want to really hurt you. Following Mordred's words, a large number of crimson lightning burst out from the brilliant sword of the King of Radiance in her hand, and stretched straight towards the sky. Treasure Phantasm. Looking at the amazing magic power on Mordred's sword, Ziyan sighed. Yes, how about it? It's still too late to admit defeat, Master. Mordred said, if the noble phantasm is really released, even I will not be able to take it back. That's it, Mordred. Artoria walked between Ziyan and Mordred. Anyway, using a treasure against the master is too much, or you really want to rebel against the master again. Cut. Hearing Artoria's words, Mordred dismissed the red thunder on the sword with a dissatisfied expression, turned around and walked away without saying a word. Leah, wait here first, I'll go talk to Mordred. Ziyan walked to Artoria's side, and patted her on the shoulder. Artoria smiled and nodded. TCH, what's so good about that man? My father is willing to be with him. Mordred, who walked to the distance, kicked a sword stuck in the ground. Evidently, even I, their orthodox successor, don't recognize it. Although you say that, I think Leah still recognizes you very much. Behind Mordred, Ziyan's voice came. It is you. Mordred turned around. Why, do you still want to fight with me? I still can't. Ziyan touched his head, and took out the King's Sword of Brilliant Radiance obtained by summoning Mordred. Actually, it doesn't make any sense for us to fight on, isn't it? After all, I can also use your treasure. Also, Archeria didn't give me her sworn victory sword. I just got a copy by summoning her. Master, you still have such ability. Mordred opened his eyes wide and picked up the brilliant king sword in Ziyun's hand. This feeling is completely indistinguishable from my sword. Mordred Joe tapped the blade and said, I'll just say, how could King Arthur give you her sword? But, you said you can use my treasure. Doesn't it mean that you can also liberate your sword? That promises victory? Indeed it is. Ziyun returned. TCH, it's really a convenient ability. Red sighed. However, what are you doing here with me? Don't you continue to flirt with Arthur? Anyway, even if I disagree, she won't listen to my opinion. After all, that guy Arthur, from a long time ago, didn't recognize me already. If you are not recognized, why did you become a member of the Knights of the Round Table so quickly? Ziyun patted Mordred on the shoulder, and sat down beside her. I think, if you don't recognize you, you can't do this, right? Since she recognized me, why didn't she accept me when I told her my identity? There was her blood in my body. Mordred yelled. Suddenly there is such a child. No matter who it is impossible to accept it in the first place. Ziyun patted the sand beside him, motioning for Mordred to sit down too. Besides, at that time, you probably wanted Leah to recognize you as the successor of the king. But, do you really have the talent to be a king? Are you looking down on me? Mordred frowned. Page 337. Everyone has their own good and bad things, Mordred. Some people are good at governing, and some are good at charging. Leah didn't recognize you as the successor, so she must have considered that you are not suitable to be a king. Ziyun looked at Mordred who was sitting beside him. Have you ever considered how to manage a country after you become king? In my opinion, Mordred is more suitable for you than becoming king. Become a general. Besides, you've been complaining about Leah's disapproval of you, but have you thought about Leah's distress? Under the circumstances in Britain at that time, the burden on Leah should be very heavy. After hearing Ziyun's words, Mordred fell silent. Speaking of which, the reason why I summoned you this time is because Leah wanted to meet the Knights of the Round Table who worked with him before. Ziyun patted Mordred's shoulder. In other words, you were summoned by Leah. What you said is true. Certainly. Ziyun nodded. She also said this time that she wanted to get along well with her former companions. I think, what she said also included you. However, the premise is that you have to get along well with her. Ziyun stood up. Let's go. It's time to go back to Leah. What's more, I will help you talk to her. I believe it won't be long before she is willing to admit that you are her child. At that time, our family of three can get along well. What a family of three? I haven't admitted it yet. Mordred roared behind Ziyun. If you don't admit it now, it doesn't mean you won't admit it in the future. Does it? Ziyun said with a smile. I almost forgot. I haven't strengthened you yet. Strengthen? Mordred tilted his head and said doubtfully. System, help me strengthen Mordred. Ziyun said to the system silently in his heart. Soon, Mordred's whole body began to be surrounded by red particles, and a large number of crimson lightning continuously swam over her body. Oh, oh, oh. This feeling is great. The sudden increase in power made Mordred show an excited expression. With this power, I can defeat even King Arthur. Master, you are not bad. Mordred seemed to have forgotten the conflict with Ziyun just now, and put a hand on Ziyun's shoulder. Thank you so much for allowing me to reach this level. In other words, you didn't strengthen me first just now. Are you afraid of losing to me? Ha ha ha. You don't have to worry at all. Even if you lose to me and cannot be with King Arthur, I can introduce you to other women. I won't lose to you, and even if I lose to you, it doesn't mean I can't be with Leah. Ziyun touched Mordred's forehead. It's strange. I don't have a fever. If that's the case, then why do you think you can introduce other women to me? You just came to this world. You don't seem to know any women. Besides, with your personality, you probably won't be able to make any female friends either. Hey, don't touch me. Do you want to be beaten up? Mordred patted Ziyun's palm away. Besides, you underestimate me too. What do you mean? I can't introduce women to you. At worst, let me replace Arthur as your woman. Anyway, you just can't be with the father. In order not to let me and Leah be together, you guys are able to sell yourself. Is that why you don't want me to be your elder? Ziyun's eyes widened. Well, this kind of situation should belong to children who don't want their parents' love to be taken away by others. What? That's not the case. You idiot master, you really want to be beaten up by me? Mordred put his hand on Ziyun's shoulder with great force, brought Ziyun's head into his arms, and tightly strangled Ziyun's neck with his own hands. So hard. Ziyun, whose head was held up by Mordred's armor, couldn't help saying, okay, can't I apologize? Page 338. Ziyun struggled slightly and said, Leah has been waiting for a long time, we really should go back. TCH, I'll let you off this time, Mordred said dissatisfied. Ziyun stretched his neck. After saying that, Ziyun led Mordred towards Leah. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Leah is holding the scabbard of Avalon. So what you said just now that you are stronger than King Arthur, I have to take it with a grain of salt. No, King Arthur Lianeva is back. If so, how can we fight her? Mordred put his head in his hands. Didn't I tell you, you should respect your father and king, and don't think about fighting Leah all day long. Seeing Mordred holding her head in both hands, Ziyun couldn't help scratching her hair fiercely with his own hands. Don't pull your hair, are you a child? Mordred yelled and kicked Ziyun violently at the same time. Ziyun smiled, quickly hid, and quickly ran towards Leah's direction, and Mordred followed closely behind. After Ziyun and Mordred arrived at Artoria's side, Ziyun lifted their unlimited sword control. Seeing that it was already very late, Ziyun brought Mordred and Artoria back to the palace, and took pictures of the room for Mordred. After that, Ziyun and Artoria left together. Ziyun, tell me, can I really get along well with her? Artoria sat on a chair in the room, and asked Ziyun, looking at Mordred's appearance. He seems very angry with me. I've just talked to Mordred. I think she actually respects and likes you in her heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't care so much about me saying that I want to be your partner. Ziyun took Artoria's hand, try to accept her slowly, although you may feel a little awkward when you have such a big daughter all of a sudden. But Mordred is actually a very good child. If she is properly guided, she will definitely become a knight that makes you proud. However, I have no experience in educating children. Artoria looked troubled. There is a first time for everything. Ziyun patted Artoria's palm. I'll help you too. You're not alone, are you? Seeing Ziyun's sincere smile, Artoria also relaxed slightly, and nodded slightly. I'll try harder. Then, the matter is so decided. Seeing Artoria nodding, Ziyun smiled and stood up. It's getting late now. Let's do the specific things tomorrow. Now, Leah, you should take a good rest. After saying that, Ziyun planned to let go of Artoria's hand and go back to his room. Will you stay with me a little longer? Artoria blushed and said, companion. Didn't you say? In the end, Artoria's voice was inaudible. Ziyun smiled, and got down next to Artoria again, gently pulling her into his arms. In Ziyun's arms, Artoria quietly listened to Ziyun's powerful heartbeat, and felt so at ease at this moment. Cloud. What is it, Leah? I'm really lucky to meet you. Please stay with me forever in the future. Well, me too, Leah. I am very lucky to meet and get to know you. It's great to be with you. In the early morning, the warm sunshine shines on the Chambord Islands, and the unique floating bubbles on the island are reflected in colorful colors. Page 339. The people on the Chambord Islands also started their own lives with the arrival of morning. Although the battle between Blue Star and the world government and the Navy took place on the island yesterday, after seeing Ziyun and his party easily defeated the coalition forces of their world government and the Navy, the people on the island completely accepted Blue Star rule. After all, the ruling policy designated by Gilgamesh stationed on the Chambord Islands is far better than the previous ruling method of the Celestial Dragons. Slave trading is not allowed and legitimate businesses are supported, which is what ordinary people on the island desire. As for the people who used to do illegal business on the Chambord Islands, they have already been cleaned up by the members of Blue Star. Coupled with the powerful strength of Blue Star, it makes the people on the island awe and at ease. With Blue Star's rule, people don't have to worry about being hurt by criminals like pirates. Now Chambord Islands, just like its unique wonderful bubble, has become a dream island. And as the sun drove away the night, Ziyun, who was holding Artoria in his arms, also woke up. Ziyun opened his eyes, saw Artoria looking at him with a smile on his face, and couldn't help but kissed her forehead lightly. Good morning, Leah. Good morning, Cloud. Artoria said with a smile. Ziyun smiled, lifted the sheet, and stood up from the bed. Leah, let's go out now. Maybe Mordred is already waiting for you. Artoria nodded with a smile, and slowly sat up from the boat. Looking at Artoria's loose hair, Ziyun came behind her, and gently stroked her golden hair with both hands. Leah, let me help you with your hair. Hearing Ziyun's words, Leah smiled happily and nodded happily. Seeing Artoria nodding, Ziyun began to take care of her usual hairstyle slowly. At the same time, Mordred had been waiting outside Artoria's door for a long time. Although Mordred didn't know what to say when she saw Artoria, after talking with Ziyun yesterday, she also wanted to try to get along with Artoria. After all, in his heart, Mordred still respects Artoria very much. Why don't you come out? Mordred walked back and forth in the corridor wearing his own armor, and looked at Artoria's door from time to time. Although he really wanted to see Artoria quickly, and tried to knock on her door many times, but in the end Mordred still retreated. You are Mordred. While Mordred was waiting anxiously, Lancelot's voice came. This voice, does it say? Turning around abruptly, he stared straight at Lancelot, who was wearing a black suit and had loose hair. Lancelot, it is really you. Dredd was a little surprised and said, although it's a little bad for me to say that, I didn't expect you to really dare to act like nothing happened here. Why, you came to this world, probably to atone for King Arthur's crimes. Hee. I didn't expect King Arthur to be here in this world, and a guy like you is also there. Wait, will you meet other knights of the Round Table? Ha. Mordred's sword appeared in his hand. Draw your sword, Lancelot. Although I'm not qualified to speak of you, but since I've met you, Let me vent my anger. Wait, Mordred, don't. Lancelot quickly waved his hand and said, don't talk nonsense. Since you refuse to draw your sword, then stand where you are and be cut down by me. As he said that, Mordred stepped on the red lightning and rushed towards Lancelot. Just as Mordred's sword was about to hit Lancelot, a golden ripple appeared in front of Lancelot. In the golden ripples, a giant sword quickly appeared, blocking Mordred's thrust with its blade. It seems that the new partner summoned by my best friend has a bad temper. Gilgamesh was dressed in casual clothes, let down his usual bristling hair, and walked over with his hands in his pockets. However, if he fights directly in my palace, does he not give me face? You bastard. Do you want to stop me? Mordred looked at Gilgamesh with displeasure. If you want to stop me, I'll cut you down too. Page 340. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Mordred's words, Gilgamesh rubbed his forehead and laughed. Interesting. This is interesting. I didn't expect to hear such an interesting joke at the beginning of today. Gilgamesh calmed down his smile slowly, and looked at Mordred. Since you make my abdominal muscles ache, I will forgive your disrespect this time. Also, if you want to fight Lancelot, fight outside the palace for me, and don't ruin this place. Why should I listen to you? Mordred showed his canine teeth. Since you must stop me, show me your skills. With that said, Mordred passed Lancelot and rushed towards Gilgamesh behind him. Really, my best friend really summoned a bad-tempered person. Gilgamesh shook his head. It seems that I have to teach you on behalf of my best friend. Facing a king, I should show my awe. Gilgamesh waved one hand. Several golden ripples suddenly appeared around Mordred, who was rushing over, and the skylock flew out of it quickly, bound towards Mordred's limbs. Although he was surprised by the chains that suddenly appeared around his body, Mordred reacted quickly with his keen intuition, stomped his feet on the ground, quickly escaped from their encirclement of the chains of the sky, and rushed towards himself back in the direction you came from. Just when Mordred readjusted his posture in the air and was about to charge towards Gilgamesh, again, Xian suddenly appeared behind Mordred, and locked her arms tightly with both hands. Sorry, Jill, I didn't pay attention to this guy for a while. I didn't expect her to act like this. After locking Mordred, Xian raised his head and looked at Gilgamesh. This guy is Lear's daughter, in the rebellious stage. I hope you don't mind. Oh, it's that rebel knight. He ha 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 ha. First Lancelot, followed by Mordred. Xian, you can really summon them. They are all guys who have a complicated relationship with King Arthur. By the way, you probably want to move the entire Knights of the Round Table here. Asshole, do you think I'm a woman? Mordred untied his helmet, and shouted loudly at Xian, let me go, I will teach you a lesson. Also, where did you come from? Should your room be in the front if you don't sleep? As he said that, Mordred took a special look at the room behind Gilgamesh. Although I didn't have time to understand the situation of the palace last night, after seeing Mordred after sobering up, Drake naturally thought that this was Xian's newly summoned companion. Red talked about the situation here, which naturally included Xian's room. The cloud came out with me. Archeria stood next to Mordred. At this moment, she was not wearing the usual set of armor, but a blue and white dress specially prepared by Xian. Archeria at this moment is a little less majestic, but a little more beautiful. For a moment, Mordred couldn't help but stare blankly. Wait and come out together means. As he said that, Mordred suddenly intensified his struggle, and Xian took advantage of their situation to let her go. Mordred, who had regained his freedom, quickly turned around and looked towards Artoria's room. Hey, coming out together shouldn't be coming out of your room together, King Arthur. Ha 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 ha. What an interesting scene. Facing Mordred's question, before Xian could speak, Gilgamesh laughed out loud. I won't bother you anymore, Xian. I'm going to inspect my territory now, so you can have a good chat here. Then, I will leave for the time being. As Lancelot said, he seemed to leave with Gilgamesh. Hey, Lancelot, this guy is going to be your king's partner. You just accepted it so easily. Seeing that Lancelot was going to leave like this, Mordred immediately dissatisfied. Also, from just now to now, what does your expression mean? Could it be that the first time you saw my face, you were so shaken? After all, I also have the blood of King Arthur, so it's not normal to be similar to him. Or, was it surprising to you to learn that I was King Arthur's child? Mordred, be quiet, Artoria said to Mordred, then turned to look at Lancelot. Mr. Lancelot, you should leave first. I will talk to her. Lancelot nodded and quickly left here. Ha, King Arthur, what do you want to say to me? Mordred said casually, but judging from his slightly tense smile, getting along with Artoria still made her a little nervous. Page 341. Artoria didn't speak, and looked at Mordred silently. Recalling the scene of Xian stroking her hair, Artoria slowly stretched out her right hand, put it on her head under Mordred's unbelievable gaze, and started to stroke it gently. Feeling the touch on her head, Mordred was shocked at first, but soon, her expression slowly relaxed. At the same time, a small laugh began to come out of her mouth, like a kitten resting. Mordred, I will try to accept you, So, are you willing to get along well with me? After stroking Mordred's hair for a while, Artoria said. Hearing this, Mordred was startled suddenly, and looked at Artoria with wide eyes in surprise. Seeing Mordred's expression, Artoria smiled. Ziyan advised me to try to understand you and accept you. I think this might be a good choice, so I want to give it a try. Mordred looked at Ziyan. Ziyan smiled and gave her a thumbs up. Everything. What's your answer? Artoria said. Of course I would, father. Mordred said excitedly. Yun, let me talk to Mordred alone first. Artoria looked at Ziyan. I think what you said is right, it's better to talk about some things. Ziyan nodded. Then, I'll leave here first. Artoria, you should also tell her about the situation here, then, we will see you later. Saying that, Ziyan kissed Artoria's forehead under Mordred's surprised gaze, and then quickly left here. Father, are you really that guy? Mordred still can't believe it now, that the Night King who had always treated all his subordinates aloofly before would also. There will be a day when I will become a partner with a man. The old me is the past tense. Mordred. Artoria looked at Ziyan's back. In my opinion, trying to experience things that have not been experienced before and making up for previous regrets is the value of our second life. Similarly, Mordred, it is my wish to eliminate your regret here. Father. At this moment, Mordred was trembling with excitement. After being separated from Artoria and Mordred, Ziyan wandered alone on the Chambord Islands. Many residents on the island seemed quite cautious when they saw Ziyan. However, the former slaves were extremely excited when they saw Ziyan, and they all bowed to Ziyan to show their respect. Among these slaves, there are some powerful people. After being rescued by Ziyan, they didn't intend to leave the island, but spontaneously patrolled various places on the island to prevent things unfavorable to Blue Star from happening. And Gilgamesh is quite optimistic about these people, and even plans to include them under his command after the test. Ziyan, you're finally out. Just when Ziyan was about to walk into a clothing store to buy some daily services for Leodo, Empress Hancock's voice came from behind him. It's you, Hancock. Ziyan turned his head. You haven't left this island yet. Why, you still have something to do with me. That, I haven't said thank you to you yet. Hancock took a deep breath, leaned forward slightly towards Ziyan. Thank you very much for being able to help me. Although at the beginning Hancock had resentment towards Ziyan for ignoring her, but deep down in her heart, she still had a great affection for Ziyan, who dared to openly resist and even kill the Tanlongren. And later, after Ziyan lifted the Tanlongren slave seal on her body, this gratitude was magnified several times. Now Hancock has no resentment towards Ziyan, only gratitude in his heart. It's just a hands-on effort. Ziyan walked to Hancock's side and whispered, for anyone who has been enslaved by their Tanlong people, I will help them remove their seal. Besides, you'd better go back quickly. Although this is our territory, it is still not ruled out that people from the Navy and the world government will infiltrate here. If they see you and me living in peace, your Kyuhai identity may not be preserved. After speaking, Ziyan patted Hancock on the shoulder and planned to leave here. And many more. Hancock quickly grabbed Ziyan's arm. Then that, actually, I want to ask you to do me a favor. Tell me, what is it? Page 342. Ziyan replied. Actually, not long ago, my two younger sisters came to the Chambord Islands. They both have the same seal as me, so I hope you can help them remove that ugly seal. Hancock looked at Ziyan expectantly. Can? Ziyan nodded. Thank you very much, Ziyan. Hancock said excitedly. The 16th chapter, The Bamboo Bar, for subscription. After Ziyan agreed, Hancock brought Ziyan to a bar. Looking at the three words knocking bamboo poles written on the outside of the bar, Ziyan couldn't help laughing. I didn't expect to come back here. I don't know if that old guy Rawley is here. Ziyan thought in his heart. Ziyan, my sisters are in this bar. Please come with me. Hancock said. Ziyan nodded, and followed Hancock into the knocking bamboo bar. Welcome, it's Hancock who's back. At the bar, a beautiful woman with short hair and a lady's cigarette in her hand said, Sister, you are back. Marigold and Sanderson stood up from their seats and looked at Hancock. Sister, that. Did Ziyan agree? Hancock smiled, and took 2 steps to the side, revealing Ziyan behind her. It's Ziyan, the two sisters said excitedly and apprehensively. This guy is Ziyan. Grannies at the side looked at Ziyan solemnly. Ah, here is a great man. Xiachi, the bar owner at the counter, said, I didn't expect that I would be able to meet the new ruler of this island so soon. Speaking of which, thanks to you, my business here is much worse. Even so, Xiachi still made a cocktail for Ziyan and put it on her counter. Master ruler, would you like to taste the wine I made? I highly recommend it. Sharky said. Hee, Ziyan, your luck is really good. I usually want to drink the wine made by Xiachi, but I can't drink it. Rayleigh came out from the back room and said with a smile. Ziyan smiled, walked to the counter, picked up the wine glass and shook it slightly, then drank it in one gulp. Very cracked wine. Ziyan nodded. If it's Dilek and the others, they will like it very much. Thanks for looking back, Million Berries. Xiakiji's palm. Isn't this a drink for me? Ziyan smiled helplessly. The price of your wine is too worthy of the name of your tavern. It's just a small business. Xiachi took a puff of cigarette and continued. Besides, because you drove away many pirates, bounty hunters, and other pirates are now landing on this island, this has greatly affected my business. What? As the ruler of this island, shouldn't he be responsible? That's fine, I'll give it to you if you win, Ziyan said with a smile. By the way, please have a glass of fruit wine. Xiachi smiled, turned around and prepared a special fruit wine for Ziyan. Page 343. Really, are you interested in helping me defeat Ziyan? If you win, I will give you 10 million berries. Hey, this risk is too out of proportion to the report. Forget it, I don't want to show my old waist. Rawley shook his head, and took out a stack of arrest warrants issued by the world government not long ago from the newspaper in his hand. Also, I don't think I can fight so many horrible guys alone. Lee smiled and looked at Ziyan. I have never seen a person whose bounty can rise so quickly. You guy is now the person with the highest bounty in the world, a total of 60 billion berry. Even Roger, that guy, has never reached such a bounty. Also, the bounties of other people are ridiculously high. In addition to Ziyan and you, your pirate group, there are 3 people whose bounties have reached the level of the 4 emperors. From this point of view, maybe you should not be called the 5th emperor, and if you develop in this way, you will become the only emperor in the sea in a short time. Hee. It seems that the death of a 5-old star has caused the world government a headache. Ziyan took a sip of the fruit wine Xiachi handed over and said, in that case, I'm in Gilgamesh's favor. Looking at you, the news about Wu Loxing's death is true. Xiachi exhaled a puff of smoke, and that? The one who killed Wu Loxing, it seems that he is His Excellency the King of Heroes who took his life. And in the future, it seems that he will also manage the island. With such terrible people around, it seems that my business will become more and more difficult to do. Should I change my career? Xiachi was lost in thought. Even if there are fewer people to knock bamboo sticks on, but with your wine alone, their business will be very good. Ziyan put down the wine glass in his hand. Except for the wine collected by the King of Heroes, this is the best wine I've ever had. Don't mind selling me some more? No problem, as long as you give enough berries. Xiachi smiled and said, speaking of which, you will have to deal with the Navy and the world government in the future. Presumably, you won't be short of my drink money. Haha. The 17th chapter, Solving, Seeking Subscription. That. Ziyan, can you help my sisters first? Hancock's voice sounded after Ziyan's death. Ziyan turned his head and saw the 3 Hancock sisters looking at him anxiously. Obviously, in their hearts, they can't wait to hope that Ziyan can help Marigold and Sanderson erase the slave seal. Okay, let's stop here for the chat. After Ziyan drank the fruit wine in the glass, he stood up from his seat. Then, find a quieter place. Go to the backyard of the bar. Xiachi took a puff of cigarette. There, no one will disturb you. Hancock nodded, and led his 2 younger sisters to the backyard, followed by Ziyan. The mother-in-law, who was worried about Ziyan, also wanted to go in, but was kicked out by Hancock. Hancock is as violent as ever. Rawley looked at grannies who flew out and shook his head, looking at the situation. I'd better not go in, lest I be kicked out by Hancock. Originally, I was quite interested in Ziyan's method of eliminating the seal of the Tanlongren. If you try to get in, I'll pull you out myself. Others have a few women inside. Why do you go in as a big man? Xiachi said. No one should see it here. After Ziyan came in, Hancock tightly closed the door. Then, I will trouble you, Ziyan. Ziyan nodded, and looked at the 2 sisters, Marigold and Sanderson. The 2 sisters showed their backs to Ziyan with a little nervousness. Ziyan carved runes on the 2 of them in the air, and soon, the slave seals on the 2 disappeared. Okay, it's over. Page 344. Ziyan looked at Hancock with a smile. Then, I'll leave first. In addition, the Navy should not take long to reach the Chambord Islands with the ransom money. If you have nothing else to do, get out of here quickly. After speaking, Ziyan opened the door and walked out. Behind Ziyan, Hancock looked at his back with a little reluctance. And the 2 sisters, Marigold and Sanderson, also hastily turned around and bowed deeply to Ziyan. Thank you, Your Excellency. Ziyan, said the 2 sisters. Ziyan waved his hand and closed the door casually. Oh. It's over so soon. Lee looked at Ziyan in surprise. I thought it would take some effort. On the other side, after seeing Ziyan coming out, the mother-in-law, who was very concerned about the 3 Hancock sisters, also hurried into the backyard to learn about the situation of Marigold and Sanderson. The matter has been dealt with, so I should go too, Ziyan said to Li and Xiachi, and many more. Xiachi called Zhu to stop. Don't you want to buy the wine I brewed? Xiachi walked out of the counter and walked towards the wine cellar. I can't let you run away if I keep up with you. Ziyan smiled and followed Xiachi. That's all, a total of 30 barrels of fruit wine and 20 barrels of spirits, a total of 10 Baileys. Xiachi pointed to some wine barrels and said, oh. It's only 100 million, so cheap. Ziyan smiled and said, I thought you were going to charge me a few 100 million. Just kidding, I dare not really charge you so much money. Xiachi waved his hand. I will live on your land from now on. If I offend you, I probably have no choice but to move out. Ziyun smiled, and with a wave of his hand, huge golden ripples appeared on the hair of their wine barrel that Xiachi was pointing at, and in a blink of an eye, the wine barrel disappeared from Xiachi's eyes. Then, Ziyun took out a stack of money from the golden hair ripples beside him and threw it at Xiachi. Then, the transaction is over, and I'll go first. After seeing Xiachi catching Bailey, Ziyun walked towards the door. Besides, as long as you don't cause trouble on this island, Gilgamesh won't trouble you. On the contrary, he will protect you. It's the same even if you were once a great pirate of the level of Rawley, the king of the underworld. It's really courageous, Xiachi said with a smile. When Ziyun walked out of the wine cellar, he happened to see Hancock and his party who had already come out in the lobby. Seeing Ziyun appearing, Hancock looked a little melancholy. Ziyun, we are leaving here. Hancock said, well, if there is a destiny, I will see you on the sea in the future. Ziyun nodded to Hancock, and left the knocking bamboo bar. Hey, Snake Princess, it's time for us to leave. The people on Nine Snakes are still worried about you. Seeing Hancock staring closely at the door, Grandma's sighed. TCH, you old woman, I don't need you to tell me, I know. Hearing Granny Zed's words, Hancock came back to his senses, looked at Granny's with a displeased face and said. Afterwards, Hancock took a deep breath, left the bar with his two younger sisters and his mother-in-law, and walked towards the coast where the Nine Snake pirates docked their ships. It looks like little Hancock is very fond of Ziyun. After Hancock and the others left, Xiachi said with a smile on his face. It's nice to be young. Rayleigh smiled, and finished drinking the spirit in the glass. Xiachi, bring me a glass of the cocktail I gave Ziyun just now. Page 345. Rayleigh held up an empty wine glass and said, it's okay, as long as you pay the money first. Xiachi glanced at Lee and said, Rayleigh, that isn't Mordred. After leaving the knocking bamboo bar, Ziyun came near the clothing store just now. Here, Ziyun saw Mordred wearing his own iconic armor from a distance. Ziyun smiled, walked quietly behind Mordred who was staring at the door of the clothing store, and patted her on the shoulder vigorously. Mordred, what are you doing here? What? Mordred suddenly turned around and jumped backwards, after seeing Ziyun. Immediately, he removed his helmet, walked in front of Ziyundi with a dissatisfied expression, and patted Ziyun's shoulder vigorously. Scared me, bastard master. Haha, sorry, Ziyun laughed and replied, however, I really didn't expect that you would let out such a scream just now. Ha ha ha, you bastard, don't laugh. Mordred grabbed Ziyun by the collar and lifted him up, shaking him vigorously. It's not you, the guy who walks without making any sound. Are you an assassin? Are you able to ignore my intuition and reach behind me? Yes. Ziyun tilted his head and looked in the direction of the clothing store. Isn't that why you put all your attention there? Ziyun patted the palm of Mordred's grasping him, motioning for her to put herself down. Let's go in and see how it goes. Anyway, I also want to buy some clothes for Leah. Cut. Mordred put Ziyun down with a displeased face. Don't look at me like an elder. If the king didn't ask me to get along well with you, I would have beaten you long ago. Okay, I see, Mordred. Ziyun stroked Mordred's hair with a smile, and quickly withdrew his palm when she was about to explode. Let's go. After speaking, Ziyun led Mordred into the clothing store. By the way, why do you suddenly want to buy clothes, Mordred? In the clothing store, accompanied by the respectful boss, Ziyun held several sets of long skirts and several sets of capable ladies' suits, and said to Mordred, HMPH, since the royal father is wearing the clothes of this world, then I will naturally wear them too. Mordred said, picking up the dress hanging on the side. I'm going to try this one, you wait for me outside. Talking, without waiting, Ziyun said something, and rushed into the fitting room with the clothes. Seeing that Mordred was holding a dress similar to that worn by Archeria this morning, Ziyun smiled and shook his head. After putting away the clothes in his hands, he took out the red lady's jacket, white sweatshirt and a pair of denim hot pants from the hanger, and went outside the fitting room, waiting for Mordred to come out. Soon, the shy Mordred in a dress appeared in front of Ziyun. What's the matter? Can I still be like this? Mordred blushed and said, pretty good. Ziyun nodded. However, you don't need to deliberately imitate Artoria's dress. Come on, how about trying this outfit? As he spoke, Ziyun handed over the clothes in his hands to Mordred. After Mordred took it, he glanced at Ziyun slightly, and then returned to the fitting room again. Within a few minutes, the youthful and handsome Mordred walked out of the fitting room. Well, it feels okay, Ziyun said with a smile. Well, it's quite convenient to wear this, and it doesn't affect physical movement. Page 346. With that said, Mordred put on a posture and waved his fist. Thank you, master. I can't see that you are quite good at choosing clothes. Mordred patted Ziyun's chest. Could it be that you use this method to attract my father? Do you think the legendary king of knights will be attracted by such a method? Ziyun shook his head, picked up the long skirt that Mordred had replaced. Let's go, I'm giving you the dress, and we can leave. Wait. Do you want to buy that dress? Modly, of course. Ziyan nodded. It's not nonsense to say that you look good in a long skirt. Moreover, even with your current body, it's good to change to a different style once in a while. Look, doesn't Leah also have different styles of clothing? Just forget it. Mordred waved his hand. It's too daunting to act while wearing this. It's still convenient for me to wear it now. You can just buy me more of this style. That would be a pity. Ziyan showed regret. I was just thinking about you wearing this long dress, just like Leah's younger sister. But since you don't want to wear it, then don't buy it. Hearing Ziyan's words, Mordred immediately picked up the dress and hugged it in his arms. Still buy it, Mordred said softly. Ziyan nodded with a smile, paid the owner of the store, and walked out of the clothing store with Mordred. Master Ziyan, Master Ziyan. As soon as he walked out of the clothing store, Ziyan saw Otonashi's owl running over, sweating profusely. What's the matter, owl? What are you in such a hurry for? Ziyan said. Lord Ziyan, when I was patrolling around the Chambord Islands just now, I saw a navy warship approaching Kaba. Otonashi Owl took a breath and continued. Also, there seems to be Admiral Akainu of the Navy on board. I was going to inform King Gilgamesh, but I didn't expect to meet you here, Kaba. Oh. The Navy came here very quickly this time. They came to redeem people in less than a day. Ziyan smiled. Still, the Marshal has been arrested, and they are in a hurry to replace him. Owl, you go and tell Gilgamesh, I'll take care of the Navy's affairs. Yes, Lord Ziyan, I will definitely execute your orders perfectly, Kaba. After finishing speaking, Otonashi Owl dragged his fat body and ran at a speed that didn't match his body. Then, Mordred, you go on shopping, I'll take care of some things first. Ziyan looked at Mordred and said, I'll go with you. Mordred took out his sword and put it on his shoulder. Father told me that the Navy and their world government are our enemies. If this is the case, wouldn't it be a good to go and see what the enemy looks like? Okay then, but this time the Navy is here to pay the ransom, so don't make trouble. Thinking of Mordred's impulsive character, Ziyan reminded, don't worry, Master, if I shouldn't do it, I won't do it either. However, if they mess around at will, then no wonder I taught them some lessons. Ha, Mordred said with a grin. Seeing Mordred's somewhat dangerous expression, Ziyan shook his head, without saying anything more, and walked towards the direction Otonashi Owl said, and Mordred followed closely behind. Although they were only walking, Ziyan and Mordred were not ordinary people, therefore, it didn't take long for them to arrive at the coast. From a distance, Ziyan saw a huge warship docking on the sea not far away. And here is the sea where the Navy and Ziyan and others are fighting. Here, even though the battle has passed for nearly a day, there are still traces of the battle. Especially the sea frozen by Kizun is more conspicuous. However, due to the influence of the noble phantasms of Spartacus and others, quite a few ice surfaces were melted away. After breaking the ice by some islanders, the traffic of small ships is no longer affected. Page 347. However, at this moment, because the Navy's warships are too large, they have to constantly destroy the ice while sailing. Therefore, Akainu is also constantly using his lava ability to melt the ice nearby. That is Hancock's pirate ship. Ziyan turned his gaze, and suddenly saw a pirate ship supported by two giant snakes, slowly approaching the naval warship. Sister, Admiral Akainu's warship is ahead. Do we really want to go there? Marigold said with some anxiety. Don't worry, Marigold, Hancock's sister is Shikai Bukai. Akainu will not attack us. If he talks to us, we just need to say that we paid the ransom to let my sister come out of there. Chambord Islands safely. Sanderson-Ear said. You say yes, Sister Hancock. Saying that, Sanderson-Ear turned to look at Hancock. Sister, what are you thinking? Sanderson-Ear, who looked at Hancock, found that her sister didn't notice what she said, but kept staring in the direction of the Chambord Islands, as if she still had some reluctance to give up. There. Marigold, sister, what's wrong? Sanderson-Ear looked at Marigold next to her. I do not know. Marigold shook her head. Since just now, Sister Hancock has looked like this, and the crew members are very strange. You just saw it too. Because of my sister's appearance, the crew members are planning to rush to the island to find Ziyan's trouble. Hey! Seeing Hancock's appearance, Grandma's sighed. Soon, pulled by two giant snakes, Hancock's pirate ship came to the front of the Navy warship. Just as the giant snake was about to bypass the warship, Sarkarski jumped off the warship and landed on the ship of the 9 snake pirates. What are you doing, Akainu? This is our pirate ship. You are not allowed to come up without permission. Seeing Sarkarski boarding the ship suddenly, the combat crew members on the ship immediately drew their weapons. Akainu, what's the matter with you? Granny Yi came to the front of the crowd with a cane, and looked at Sarkarski with a look of dread. Get out of the way, all of you. I'm looking for Boa Hancock. I have some problems and I need her to come back to me. Sarkarski looked at the members of the 9 snake pirates standing in front of him with a serious expression and said, if you don't get out of the way, don't blame me for being rude. As he said that, lava began to drip from Sarkarski's hands, falling on the deck, melting gaps one by one. Saikulski, don't go too far. Granny Zan knocked on the deck with her cane. Hancock is recognized by you as the Kibu High, and this time he also responded to your call and helped you attack the Drake pirates. Under such circumstances, isn't it inappropriate for you to do this on our pirate ship? Hearing Granny Zed's words, Saikulski frowned tightly. I've already said that the person I'm looking for is Hancock, and everyone else who has nothing to do with me will get out of the way. A large amount of magma began to pour out from one of Saikulski's hands. Since you won't let me all die. Big flame. Facing the members of the 9 snake pirates who were blocking him, Saikulski swung his fist violently. The magma roars on their fists converged into a huge magma ball, and quickly smashed towards everyone. After Saikulski swung his attack, the temperature on the pirate ship rose sharply. Hancock on the boat finally came to his senses. Seeing that Akainu's attack was about to go in front of his companions, Hancock acted immediately, and came to the front of everyone extremely fast, with armed domineering legs covered, and Saikulski's attack forcefully. Finally Ken came out. Empress Cook. Saikulski withdrew his fist and looked at Hancock seriously. What's the matter with you, Akainu? Hancock frowned at Saikulski. Why attack my crew? Empress, I have something to ask. Karski walks into Hancock. Can you tell me how did you leave from Ziyun's hands? Page 348. Why should I tell you? Hancock looked at Saikulski with dissatisfaction. These are all my own affairs, so I shouldn't need to report to the Navy. Hancock, see your situation clearly. Saikulski clenched his fist. Depending on the situation, I can execute you right here. Anyway, you are useless in this battle between the Navy and the Drake pirates, aren't you? During the battle, he was out of shape the whole time, and after that, he was easily captured by Ziyun. It can be said that you have played no role in this battle. Like you, maybe you are not suitable to be Shikibukai. Saikulski looked at Hancock gloomily, lava flooding his hands again. Or, simply, you are actually from Blue Star, just like that. Peluslino. Speaking of this, a strong murderous aura began to emanate from Saikulski's body. After the Peluslino incident, Saikulski became extremely suspicious. Seeing that Hancock walked out of the Chambord Islands unscathed, coupled with Hancock's performance in the intelligence, now Saikulski is extremely suspicious of Hancock. So, when meeting Hancock here, Saikulski already planned to destroy Hancock's pirate group. In Saikulski's heart, even if Hancock is not Ziyun's companion, he just killed a vase that can't play any role in the battle. Wait, General Akainu. Seeing that Saikulski was about to make a move, Grandmas quickly stood up. Our 9 snakes, Ziyun, and the Drake pirates have nothing to do with each other. Snake Princess, it was also because of your summoning that I met them for the first time. That bastard Ziyun has nothing to do with us. You are not allowed to call Ziyun a bastard, you old woman. Hearing Granny Zed's words, Hancock kicked Granny's away without even thinking about it. Oops. The mother-in-law who was flying in the air couldn't help yelling that it was bad when she saw Hancock defending Ziyun like this. Sure enough, after seeing Hancock defending Ziyun, Saikulski no longer just spewed lava from his hands, but his whole body began to spew lava. Sure enough, you have a deep relationship with that Ziyun. Saikulski slowly raised his right hand. Since this is the case, there is no need for you to stay in this world. Today, I will kill you, and after that, your entire pirate group will be destroyed by our navy. After what happened last night, I will personally destroy your country. So, repent for your crimes, Empress Hancock. Not good. Quickly protect the Empress. Protect my sister. The crew of the ship moved quickly, but they couldn't keep up with Saikulski's punching speed. After Saikulski finished speaking, the magma in his hand quickly gathered into a scarlet dog, biting towards Hancock's heart. In order to quickly kill Hancock, Saikulski did not hold back his attack this time. The speed was so fast that even Hancock himself could hardly react. He could only watch Saikulski attack towards his own body, hitting at the heart. At this critical moment, a strong arm wrapped around Hancock's waist and pulled her behind. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise, Saikulski stepped back a few steps in a row. After he stood still, he found that Ziyun was slowly withdrawing his fist. It's you, Ziyun. Saikulski gritted his teeth and said, Meet you again, Saikulski. You are still as bad-tempered as before. You even want to kill the Chi-Yu-Hai you recognize. If you do this, no one will dare to be your Chi-Yu-Hai in the future. Ziyun said with a smile. Stop joking, Ziyun. This woman is your companion after all. Saikulski pointed at Ziyun angrily. Hee, looking at you. Even if I say no, you won't believe me. Ziyun shook his head, and pulled Hancock into his arms. Then, I will warn you about what you do to the woman I like, and if you do anything to her, I don't mind letting you go and fight with the warring states and the others. Be a companion. Page 349. Look at that woman. Hancock's face turned red when he heard Ziyun's words, and his body leaned against Ziyun's body weakly. You. Saikulski gritted his teeth and looked at Ziyun. Well, Saikulski, we're not here to fight them this time. 2 women, the old and the young, jumped off the Navy ship, standing between Sarkarski and Ziyun. The old man among them said to Sarkarski, "Isn't this the chief of staff of the Navy, Crane? I was still there just now. It's strange, how could the Navy send an impulsive guy like Sarkarski to trade? So you still exist on the warship," Ziyun said to the Crane. Afterwards, Ziyun looked at the exaggeratedly tall woman behind he, wearing a peach-colored top and short shorts, holding a long knife. Thinking of the reaction of the Navy not long ago when they learned that Peluslino was on his side, Ziyun couldn't help feeling a bad taste in his heart. "Isn't this an alternate admiral of the Navy, Momotaro? It seems like a long time has passed since I saw you last time." Ziyun smiled and said, "At that time, you were just a small soldier, but now you have become the mainstay of the Navy, Giant." "I don't seem to have met you directly, black-haired Admiral." Momotaro Giant frowned and said, "Yes, of course you haven't seen me, but I have seen you." "By the way, I heard that the T-Dolphin has been chasing you," Ziyun said. "You even know about this? Did that Borusolino guy tell you?" Crane stepped forward and said, "It's not just this matter, I know many things about you." Ziyun smiled. "Do you need me to tell you one by one?" "Bastard, Peluslino that." Sekulski clenched his fists. Roared, "Who knows, maybe Peluslino told me, but maybe someone else told me, he." Ziyun laughed. "You mean, do you still have people in our Navy?" He frowned. "Or, it's just you playing tricks on us, trying to make us disagree from within?" "This matter requires you to think about it." Ziyun waved his hand. "Let's talk about the transaction. You want to get your people back soon. In this case, first give me what I want, and after that, you can take the warring states Crane, Carp and the others away." "Bastard Ziyun, please explain clearly to me." Red Dog walked into Ziyun suddenly. The magma on his body seemed to erupt at any moment. "Oh. Is this going to be a fight? Ha ha." Mordred, who had been silent since he boarded the pirate ship of 9 Snakes, stood in the middle of Ziyun. Sarkarski, the King of Brilliance sword in his hand was shining with dazzling red thunder, faintly fight against the magma on Sarkarski. "Sarkarski, we are not here to fight, please calm down." Crane's voice came from behind Sarkarski. "Now is not the time to conflict with them." Hearing what the Crane said, Sarkarski also calmed down a little, stepped back slightly, and dispersed the magma on his body. "Oh, I thought he was a guy with a bit of backbone, but I didn't expect him to be a softie." Mordred gave Sarkarski a look of disdain. "It's really nothing to grow so tall. I don't want a man at all." "You'd better go home and find your mother." He. "Damn it, tell me again, King of Knights." Sarkarski glared at Mordred and said. However, although Sarkarski was angry, he didn't intend to do anything again. After he calmed down, he still knew that his current combat strength was unable to compete with Ziyun and others. In addition, Sekulski once lost to Artoria, and he recognized Mordred, who looked very similar to Artoria, as Artoria. Therefore, although he was dissatisfied with Mordred's words, Sarkarski still tried his best to endure desire to do it himself. "Tch, the Navy is really a bunch of soft bones." Page 350. Mordred shook his head, and withdrew the long sword in his hand. "Also, I am not the King of Knights. I'm the only orthodox successor of the Night King, Mordred. You remember clearly, the Red Dog, who was once defeated by my father, the Night King." Artoria told Mordred about the battle between Artoria and Sarkarski. Therefore, Mordred still knows this. Sarkarski frowned, gave Mordred a cold look, then turned and jumped onto the warship. In order to prevent himself from being unable to help himself, Sarkarski decided to leave their negotiation to Crane. A child of the King of Knights? Standing on the deck of the warship, Sarkarski thought silently. Also, what Ziyun said, is there a traitor like Peluslino in the Navy, or is it that the peach rabbit that Ziyun took the initiative to talk to? Thinking of this, Sekulski shook his head irritably. His body involuntarily exuded billowing magma, and the scorching temperature made the Navy on the side afraid to go forward. "Che, I thought I could beat this guy who dared to provoke the father, but I didn't expect him to run away." Mordred walked to the edge of the boat unhappily, kicked him hard, and then leaned on the edge of the boat and fell asleep. She was not interested in the next transaction, so she left it to Ziyun to deal with it. "It seems that the transaction is carried out by you." Ziyun withdrew his gaze from Sarkarski and looked at the Crane. "I didn't expect that." Sarkarski is quite calm. "I thought I could get more from your Navy from him." "Something." After hearing Ziyun's words, he frowned tightly, then turned to look at Toto. "Giant, go and bring down the items from this transaction." Momotaro nodded and jumped directly onto the warship. After a while, he returned to Kuznek's pirate ship with what Zharu asked for. "Here are the devil fruit and Bailey you want. Now you can return the warring states marshal to us." Momotaro put the treasure chest with devil fruit and Bailey on the deck. Ziyun smiled, took out a phone bug, dialed Peluslino and asked him to bring the Navy in their dungeon to his place, then hung up the phone. "Ziyun, what is your purpose?" After Ziyun hung up the phone, he looked at Ziyun and asked, "Kill the Tanlong people, and even kill the 5 old stars. Do you want to completely mess up this world?" "This world is already in chaos. isn't it? Ziyan let go. Hancock in his arms looked at the crane with some regret in Hancock's eyes and said, besides, the reason why this world is so chaotic is that many of the responsibilities lie with your Navy and the world government. What nonsense are you talking about? The world government and the Navy are both organizations to maintain world peace. How could they mess up the world? He frowned and said, let's not talk about your Navy. But you say that the world government maintains world peace. Haha, I don't agree with that. Ziyan said disdainfully, it's just an organization to protect its own power. If they are really for the good of this world, then why are there still Danlong people who are extremely weak? Using ordinary people as slaves is not something that Bing would do. If it weren't for them, presumably there would be no revolutionary army. Ziyan looked down at the crane. Now do you still feel that the world government is not responsible for the chaos in this world? As for my purpose, isn't it easy to see, to kill the Danlong people and destroy the world government? Ziyan put away his smile and looked at he coldly. If you want to stand in front of me, then I won't hold back from you. After hearing Ziyan's words, he and Tota behind her fell into silence. After all, things about Danlong people really exist and spread widely in this world. Any justification pales in the face of what they have done. In addition, he and Tota usually dislike Danlong people very much, so at this time, facing Ziyan's questioning, they are also speechless. After seeing that crane and Tota didn't speak, Ziyan took the devil fruit and Bailey brought by Tota into his treasury, and Tota didn't stop him either. They still believe that Ziyan will abide by the contractual spirit of the transaction. After receiving the Navy's ransom, Ziyan came to Mordred's side and chatted with her. Although Mordred was very rude to Ziyan verbally, but because of Ziyan's help, she was recognized by Artoria, and Artoria also hoped that she could get along well with Ziyan. So, Mordred still has a deep affection for Ziyan. On the other side, Hancock looked at Ziyan and Mordred who were chatting happily, and wanted to join them very much. But he was afraid that disturbing Ziyan and Mordred would cause Ziyan's disgust, so he didn't go there, just looked at Mordred who was fighting with Ziyan with envy and jealousy. Peluslino's actions were quick, and Ziyan didn't have to wait long. Peluslino drove a ship, brought Sengoku, Carp and others to the position of the Navy ship. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, where you can find advanced audiobooks that hasn't been uploaded on YouTube till now. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.